Hello friends, Red X returns, now with more science. We talk a lot about narcissism and spooky things on the channel, and few things are spookier than the SCP monsters that we uncovered in our deep dives. For a bit of backstory there, in January 2008, SCPs would begin popping up on the X board of 4chan. They would become popular quickly, and soon a wiki would host this new form of internet creepypasta, hosting a colorful cast of characters that would grow more and more diverse over time. That trickle-in of people would invite some very bad actors. The following is a compilation of our deep dive videos into the SCP community's most degenerate writers. If you have a particular interest in one of those writers, there are some timestamps on the screen and also in the description, maybe even in the comments for you to click on and jump around. And now, sit back, try and relax as we explore some of the SCP community's darkest secrets. What happens when a digital degenerate is given unchecked power in a small community? What happens when that person's power and namesake grow to become a monolith in that community? What happens when that community begins to grow to a wider and more impressionable audience? What happens when the cries for help against this individual are ignored or suppressed due to their status? These are the questions that we will seek to answer today. This is the tale of drbright, the SCP community's open secret. But first, what is SCP? SCP, or the SCP Foundation, is a fictional universe that focuses on tales of containment fiction. Containment fiction being a vehicle for horror writing, focusing on the detainment of monsters and their abilities. Their name stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. Its formation would come after the popularity of fake articles in this containment fiction tone started appearing on the X board of 4chan. Eventually, this format's popularity would soar on X, and an official wiki was created for the sake of creating a more immersive universe. Among the founding members of this SCP wiki would be Admin Bright, who would go on to create a self-insert character, as did many of the other founding members of the wiki. Dr. Gears, Dr. Clef, Everett Man, and Tilda Moose are all such characters, but no self-insert character was as large or as beloved as Dr. Bright, Admin Bright's in-universe persona. So, what made Dr. Bright special among this cast of characters? Much of his appeal was pseudo-immortality via SCP-963, an amulet that saves the wearer's soul and mind on it upon their death. Anyone the amulet is put onto for an extended period of time will eventually become Dr. Bright. This allowed for the character to be portrayed very differently than other in-universe characters, putting him in all manner of horrific or madcap situations without any actual fear of death. There was a juxtaposition that people resonated with between the character's wacky adventures and boredom with immortality. In the earliest days of SCP, people quite enjoyed the character, and they used him liberally within tales and articles. This made Admin Bright and his avatar a sort of mascot for the site. This level of attention would ferment him as a figure of idolization. With hindsight, we can delve into the past of this infamous staff member and watch the tragic shortcomings of the community at large to stop what was sitting right in front of them. Now, one final note. Everything in this video that does not have definitive receipts, you could just slap a big ol' allegedly over it. We're going to be covering roughly 16 years of content in a relatively short amount of time, and some claims are little more than hearsay, but many others are absolutely confirmed with screenshots and evidence. Weigh each thing in this video by its own merit, and above anything else, do not seek to harass or contact anyone listed in this video. The first signs that something was amiss with Admin Bright comes from his very own writings on the wiki itself. There was a tone to them that was very focused on adult content and occasionally featured characters under the age of majority. Doctor is one such tale in which our digital degenerate has basically cloned his mind into every person on Earth. The tale has been nuked from orbit by the SCP Wiki, a trend that you will notice is their go-to, but I was able to recover a rough copy of it. I'm going to throw that copy up on screen and you can peruse it at your leisure, but suffice to say that it does feature a now 13-year-old and female drbright, who is quite delighted with his new attachments, if you take me. We can see in this story, Admin Bright has decided to put an odd hyperfixation on himself in a 13-year-old girl's body, going into fairly graphic detail about certain parts of her anatomy, and he would defend this for at least 2 years unapologetically. Decibel says the 13-year-old thing's an instant downvote. Good story otherwise, though, Admin Bright.
So, a harmless joke is an instant downvote?
Decibels replies, if I downvote something based on a single thing like that, it's because I have personal reasons behind downvoting based off of it. Admin Bright asks,
really? What are they?
Phantom also says, I'm echoing Decibel on the 13-year-old bit because it comes off as kind of creepy to me in the bad way. Oh, but surely it's just a mistake. We all make mistakes. I mean, I wouldn't make this mistake as a 36-year-old man writing fiction, but I guess surely some do. I'm sure we won't find any other examples of this from his early work. Oh, wait! That's right, he also wrote SCP-1004. SCP-1004 is a floppy disk that basically works like a supernatural adult site that can create videos of anything that you prompt it to create. Think of it like ChatGPT, but basically just for smut. The longer one uses this anomaly, the more degenerate they become, eventually becoming predatory in some capacity and seeking to victimize people. And if I'm not mistaken, this literary work remains unchanged to this day on the wiki. Another horrific example comes from the tale Things to Do in Tel Aviv When You're Dead, which has also been nuked, so we will use this brief recounting from a Kiwi Farms user. This user said, unfortunately, this work of art was lost to time, but really all you need to know about third interlude, Things to Do in Tel Aviv When You're Dead, is that Bright gets into the body of a young woman in skimpy club gear with giant bazoongas. Did he use that word? In a dark alley, and she almost gets mugged, but decides to fight them off, resulting in the line, even as Bright slams with his good hand, his left hand is at his top, pulling it down to reveal his new and rather impressive mammaries. I've never heard someone use the word mammaries to refer to like breasts before in a context like this, and it keeps me up at night. Mammaries, spelled with a Y instead of an IE. The mental image of Bright pulling down his top to distract the muggers with his new and impressive giant anime bazoongas. I don't have a date on this work, but this must have been written at least a decade ago now, and I wonder if Duckman even remembers mammaries, or like if he ever even thinks in retrospect about Big Bazoonga Bright and his rather impressive mammaries. Like, given, to be fair, you have to understand that the rest of this core story as a whole is fucking insane, and borders on Mary Sue at several points with the thankfully now banished main author avatar, but I can never get past the memory of reading this for the first time in the backseat of my parents' car. I guess the only question I have after reading this is who the hell is Bright writing this for? Based on the previous two articles, I'm inclined to believe this user's recounting of the tale. The description of the writing just sounds too on brand from what I've seen in researching this specimen. Most notable of all of Bright's own writing, though, is the list of things Dr. Bright is no longer allowed to do, which was a comical list of things Dr. Bright in-universe had been reprimanded for. Now, this too has been nuked, but with the power of the Wayback Machine, I've selected a few odd things on the list for your consideration. Dr. Bright is not allowed to accept a child's laughter or tears as payment. Dr. Bright is not allowed to access infants for the purpose of becoming the baby New Year, and the answer to a containment breach is never to recruit a team of teenagers with attitude or to send 5 rings to 5 special young people. Dr. Bright is also not allowed to introduce small children to the giving tree. Also on this list are many instances of unwanted adult advances. Now, this had possibly been contributed to by other authors, but as a whole, with hindsight, it is a very gross article. If these little examples weren't enough to get you grossed out quite yet, maybe Diary 573 will be enough to convince you that the signs of Bright's degeneracy were on full display the whole time. I will now read you a couple of excerpts from this scrawling straight from the depths of hell. Personal Diary of Dr. Julius Redacted. Diary entry 573-5. The testing continues apace. Today I had the physical children dress in workout clothes and sent them through some tumbling. A close examination of the children proves that their physical attractiveness has increased drastically under the influence of SCP-573. Skipping straight to the end because there's a lot of horrible stuff in the middle there. It doesn't matter what I do to them, they keep teasing me, keep talking about me. These rancid little beasts think they're better than me. They think they can talk about a learned doctor behind his back without him knowing. Oh, these children are in for it. And not just the little things I've been doing. No more cuts and burns, oh no. These children will pay for their insolence. On date redacted, security responded to an alarm called in by one Dolores Try, a Site-63 caregiver. Upon arriving at room 301, security discovered Dr. Redacted, cavorting amidst the remains of his young charges, covered in, well, you get the idea. I don't want to be here for any longer than I need to be here. This article is simply disgusting and has such a malevolent aura about it that I'm not sure how anyone could write this down and think, oh yeah, I'm gonna post this, people will love it. Even for the edgiest of edgelords, this is beyond the pale. In fact, on the official Admin Bright timeline provided by the Foundation, this article was around as early as 2009. Their statement reads as follows. July 2009, Personal Diary of Dr. Julius Redacted, also known as Diary 573, was posted and featured themes of child SA. Personally, I feel they should have known from just this alone that this was not a man who should have any sort of power. This is not a person who should be allowed to write articles and post them, but somehow Dr. Bright persevered. Just like his fictional character, the writer behind the character seemed unkillable. These were not the only signs of Bright's early dedication to his weird fixations over his obligations to the community. One second-hand account is as follows. User writes, another person who's not that kosher, the Duckman/Bright. He was an author when the articles were still being written on 4chan and helped found the site. I don't have any screenshot evidence for what he was doing, but according to author Eskobar, Bright is known for having sent unsolicited and solicited nudes all around in the early days of the wiki. Bright also has a tendency to hit on young girls, despite being close to his 40s, as was the case with my friend and him. As Escobar was telling me during a very early writing contest, Bright was preoccupied for a few hours and couldn't attend as the organizer had planned. Instead of just sticking to that as an official announcement, his explanation was rather lengthy and elaborated on how he will go to a BDSM convention with his 2 mistresses and greatly enjoy himself, and that he's very sorry for the wait. Apparently that announcement can still be found in the respective page's history, but I haven't got a clue as to which one it is. Again, I don't have screenshots of this conversation, but I also got this from Escobar, and he's about as trustworthy as me without concrete evidence. But if you were to ask anyone closer associated with main site, they would react rather negatively to Bright as a person. He is a stuck-up and self-absorbed prick. if you're wondering who Eskobar is exactly, just know that he was banned as well for similar behavior. This shines a light onto Admin Bright's proclivities outside of the wiki, being very invested in specific adult interests. If we glance over the allegations of interest in young women for now, and just focus on the priorities of Bright when it comes to unique adult interests, it paints a darker picture. Though it would be safe to say that what consenting adults do with each other should not disqualify people from a position. When that interest is a fixation or an addiction, and they choose that over their previously vowed obligations to others, well, that's when it becomes a matter of debate. Should such a person be trusted with any sort of power or responsibility? So what, Red X? You might be asking the screen. The guy wrote some edgy, not safe for work style content and has special interests that one wouldn't put on their resume, but that's not evidence of any wrongdoing. And you are correct in that. But I believe this early behavior painted a picture, or at the very least created a rough outline of Bright's character as a person. These are not the obligations and literature of a person playing with a full deck of cards. There's a saying out there, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. This is where I have to stop and highlight something known as the O5 Command Wiki. This is a side wiki used for disciplinary decisions on the SCP Wiki. They have an infuriating habit of being incredibly vague about the reasons that a person was banned from the site, often using phrasing like the unacceptable behavior as the only reason given for a ban. Researching their ban history, this has been used for all manner of bans, from basic trolling to the downright worst of the worst. This, along with the wiki moderators obliterating any signs of problematic articles such as Diary 573, makes it very difficult to figure out the history of an individual like Bright, forcing us to use archive sites and hearsay to form our opinion. One would not be out of pocket for alleging that they might even use this to cover up things for their own optics. Another team that works hand in hand with the O5 is the anti-harassment team, which is meant to investigate allegations, such as the ones we saw before, allegations of unwanted advances. And this is the part that really makes my head spin. Do you know who was part of the anti-harassment team? Go ahead, write your guess in the comments. I'll wait. If you guessed Admin Bright, congratulations! You win a pile of man-made horror beyond your comprehension. Courtesy of Clown World. This would become a greater issue down the line as allegations against Admin Bright would begin to mount, because now the person doing the thing you want to stop happening is one of the people you have to talk to about not doing the thing that they're currently doing. What's that called? A conflict of interest, yes. We know this to be true, as the wiki itself stated this much in its official Bright timeline. January 2014, the current team base staff model began. Admin Bright served as one of the administrator contacts for the anti-harassment team from its inception until their retirement. They also served on the disciplinary team in various roles from its inception. One says interim captain. Association and membership with these teams, and as an administrator, has historically led to allegations that Admin Bright abused their power, either in general or to prevent investigation into their own actions. Egregious, no? Well, I just want you to keep that info in your head as we move forward, because it will very much come into play later. Returning to our conversation about Bright's special interests, another issue that would be solely placed on the shoulders of this man was the issue of using their notoriety on the wiki on other sites. This was especially an issue when Admin Bright began advertising the SCP Wiki and his status as Dr. Bright on FetLife. And if you don't know what that is, good, but it's an adult website that functions like a mix of Tinder and MySpace for people with very special adult interests. Using archived media from Kiwi Farms, we could take a look at his profile. So here we can see Dr. Bright, yes, just letting it all hang out. Oh, what a terrible day to have eyes. He's definitely not shy about his proclivities. His libido leads him to some crazy places. Allegedly, at one point in time, this account included or went by the name of Dr. Bright. This would change after the staff over at the Wiki decided that they no longer considered such a thing kosher. All of a sudden, this is where we get one of Admin Bright's aliases, the Duckman. But you can clearly see that he is still advertising the SCP Wiki on his FetLife account. I wonder just how many degenerates wandered into the Wiki based on that fact alone. Considering Admin Bright was also an avid attender of adult interest conventions, I believe the chances on this happening are, well, more than likely. We could also take a look at his special interests in detail. On this list, there are two particularly disturbing entries, which I've pointed out. Corrupting the innocent, with the subtext of all about it, and girls who like being hurt by big scary men, both of which are massive red flags, but at this point there are so many red flags, it's sort of hard to tell if I'm making a YouTube video or taking a light speed trip through China. Another thing to keep an eye on from this list is receiving pictures via text, and yeah, of course, that's going to come up later. To further compound this revelation was the fact that Admin Bright created a corner of FetLife just for SCP power users and friends to join him. The title was Secure, Contain, Penetrate, which is just such a gross name. Sounds more like a biopic film from the POV of John Wayne Gacy than a chat room. We could also look at Duckman's friend list, which happens to include people who will be getting their own video, and members of staff from the Wiki. Cyantruese and Wrong John Silver are both names to remember from this list. We can get a look into the LARPing that they were doing in their own special little corner of FetLife, just to get a little taste of what these upstanding folks were up to over on this dirt corner of the internet. We've got more receipts. A thread was started by Cyantreuse asking, "Why are you here?" Bright responds, "Also because I'm Bright and I kinda have to." Cyantruese, "I'm here because people figured out that it's weird for me to have so much SCP cosplay when I never go to cons." Procypants says, "To ensure this group comports with Creative Commons Share Alike Attribution 3.0 requirements." Cyantruese replies to Procypants, "It's Rule 3 in the rules, TM. If it's not proper, you can print out the correct version and laminate it and shove it in my ass. Make sure all your kinky private roleplays are prefaced with the statement of the CC license. I gotta keep all this legal. I will fucking DMCA non-compliant ERP, I swear to God. You better provide a text link to every mentioned SCP or I will come down so hard on your ass it will legally welt." Definitely looks like a fun time, doesn't it? Something that I absolutely want to be involved in. FetLife seems like the perfect place to host your little ERP roleplay, as opposed to, the main site or its associated Discords and IRC channels, but we'll get into that. And it is now that we can see a culture was being cultivated to at least some degree, a culture of adult interest among people who were important to the structure of the Wiki. This is an important thing to note. All fandoms, every single one, has people who will take it towards adult themes. Rarely, however, do we see the creators of the fandom creating that culture. In time, you'll see that this undercurrent had detrimental effects that would reverberate in some fairly predictable ways. This culture, though, would remain mostly unspoken, again showing Bright to be somewhat well insulated as part of the anti-harassment team and their lack of showing receipts in order to protect victims. It's not a far-fetched conclusion to say that it's possible that Bright actively suppressed complaints himself. An early example of this can be seen in a discipline complaint against Admin Bright for editing other people's articles without permission. User Elena posts a thread called Bright and says this is an official complaint regarding the behavior of a site administrator, Bright, who made multiple unauthorized edits to this essay earlier today. The first edit was unauthorized and against my desires. The second was in direct violation of my request to not touch the page, to reinstate the change that I reverted. As this is neither the first time, nor will it likely be the last time, that Bright has interfered with my articles or the administration authorized work that I perform for the community, I'm formally requesting that disciplinary action be taken against him. I've made a formal request to Dexanote and IRC that such action be taken, but it was summarily ignored. This is grossly unprofessional conduct, unbecoming of staff, and it is not acceptable in any way. This also has nothing to do with the substance of the edits. At Dexanote's request, I have made an edit to better reflect the nature of the essay's content. I'm sick and tired of Bright unilaterally making changes where he's not welcome and getting nothing more than a slap on the wrist. Bright replies,
"Hey, it was listed as a glossary. How was I to know that you wanted it to be only your definition of words, not the site's definition? If you make an official-looking page, people will take it officially. So either make sure it's not taken as something meant to be official, or reflect the actual site policies. Seen?"
And then 3 smiley faces just to drive home the fact that he is indeed being a condescending prick who will face no retribution for his actions. People do reply, try to dogpile him a little bit, and it leads him to playing the victim.
"Go away! Just go away! I'm tired of your constant complaining, your repetitive BS, and your need to try and turn this site into what you need it to be. I tried for civil converse, but I'm just getting tired of butting heads with you for so long over such simple things, and you refuse to see it. I spend hours every day working on this site, trying to keep it going, and I've been doing that for the last, 5 years now? I'm sick and tired of arguing with you because you never seem to catch on. I'm sick of it. I do this job for fun, and the drama it generates is distressing. I try to keep my personal life out of this, but you know what? Life fucking sucks. It really does. I'm fighting major league depression, trying to deal with a job that I loathe, that is using the fact that I have a job I love but don't get paid well at as an excuse to cut me down to part-time, and it's working, 'cause I can't leave the fair. It's what keeps me sane. My life is in shambles, trying to pay the bills, trying to keep everything together, trying to hold on, tell myself it's just one more friggin' thing after another, and I don't know why I'm still writing this, but perhaps it's cathartic to finally type this out, trying to make someone, anyone, fucking understand. Yeah, nobody understands me, guy. I just don't get it. It all seems simple to me, but everyone has to make everything so goddamn complicated, and this very site, is one of those few bright points in my life where I could just get on and work and read and make a goddamn difference, and I'm just tired. I'm so very fucking tired of all the goddamn arguments. Just screw everything, you know?
Very mature and calculated response, I see. This is a man in control of his own emotions. I honestly don't know if there's a whole lot that's easier than working at a Ren fair. You show up early, you go home late, but yeah, you have a good time. If you're not having a good time, then maybe it is time to go. You live a very easy and sheltered life, is what I'm saying, and you still have the audacity to complain about it and use it as a defense mechanism when someone is legitimately coming after you for a thing that you absolutely did. It's pathetic. As you can see, this was a point of contention among the admins, but they eventually sided to keep Admin Bright aboard. It also highlights Admin Bright's narcissism, which has been anecdotally commented on by many people in many different corners of the internet. One of my favorite examples of his narcissism on full display is also a bit of an RPG horror story. Some people on LiveJournal created an SCP tabletop-style game, which Bright offered to play in. This Kiwi Farms user says, "Oh, I have a story about the guy who made Dr. Bright. I don't know his actual name, so I'll just call him Bright. Back around 2011 to 2012, someone on LiveJournal made a roleplay game based on the SCP Foundation. That wasn't anything for profit or claiming to be an official part of the SCP Foundation. It was just an insignificant roleplay game made by a few fans. Well, Bright found it and asked if he could join as Dr. Bright. The creators, excited that someone who was involved with the actual wiki wanted to play in their game, said, "Hell yeah." Well, turns out that he really didn't care about playing in the game, and his intentions for joining were to keep it from becoming stupid or straying too far from SCP canon. His entire presence in the game was one tantrum after another, as he tried to play canon police and tell people that they were doing it wrong. In the end, he threw such a big fit that culminated in him telling people that Dr. Bright was going to kill their characters because they were stupid characters that would never be part of the actual SCP Foundation, that the creators of the game just said, you know what, fuck it, and closed the entire tabletop game. He went crying to another LiveJournal community about how the players in that community just don't care enough about the SCP Foundation canon, to which the response was an overwhelming, "Why do you care?" So unsurprisingly, the guy with the Mary Sue immortal scientist character that breaks basically every rule on the SCP Wiki is also a huge man baby that can't handle people writing things that he doesn't like on completely different websites. As for my opinion about SCP as a whole, there are some good, creepy creations there, but the rules and guidelines for writing these are the peak of TISM, and so are a lot more of the prominent members. The fact that a lot of these exceptional individuals seem to think they're God's gift to horror writing doesn't really help matters. This is mostly unconfirmed, but one exceptional person on the internet seems to have gone through the trouble of finding LiveJournal links that seem to make this story plausible, at the very least. These are LiveJournal posts from Admin Bright himself, and they read as follows. "Somebody tell me an SCP Foundation pan-fandom game's a bad idea. So is just a plain SCP Foundation game. Also, heading into Lansing on Saturday. Gonna check out the VTM LARP at Fortress, cause I'm fiending. For anyone who missed it, the March 17th something positive? Oh yes! That's totally my question Randy's answering. Booyah! So somebody made a LiveJournal game, Pan-Fandom of the SCP, which is a site I'm an admin of, creepypasta stuff, go check it out. They're using the characters myself and others created because they're canon to the SCP, letting other people appropriate them. I have no idea how to feel about this." With the power of hindsight, yes, it's quite clear how you felt about this. You know, it is kind of funny to imagine a 40-year-old man who's so obsessed with himself that he's telling people that they're playing a make-believe SCP game wrong. A 40-year-old man. I guess I'll take my laughs where I could get them. But Admin Bright is not satisfied to just ruin your role-playing games. No, he's also happy to just ruin your day for a little bit of trolling. Which I take personal offense to, because we do a bit of trolling around here ourselves. "Just a reminder, the SCP staff is prepared to go nuclear. I'm sure it's not our best light, but this still makes me proud. We had this kid. We referred to him as the Meninist shit because every time he popped into the chat, he would spout that kind of misogynistic bull. He joined chat and wiki repeatedly for months on end under assumed names and alt accounts, etc. Always was in bad taste, always trolling just to give us crap and a couple death threats, and in general making the site a worst experience for anyone who had to deal with him. I know it doesn't sound that bad, but he was causing a severe downturn in site quality, and we were unable to stop him."
We actually had him K-line from IRC because of this bullshit. Repeatedly. He was a persistent little bastard. I got 3 pages and dozens of IP addresses from him trying to circumvent his ban, and at least 10 usernames on Wikidot. So, how, you ask, did we finally get rid of him? We emailed his mom. She was quite happy to find out what her son had been doing and grounded his ass. No further problems since. Don't mess with us. We'll tell.
I guess Admin Bright hasn't heard about Snitches Get Stitches. So yes, here we can see Admin Bright bragging about doxing and emailing a 16-year-old's mother. Now, they do allege that the person in question issued some death threats, and of course that is concerning. The correct response in this situation would be to hand evidence over to the authorities. Emailing the Unabomber's mother would not have prevented death. It's really just taking justice into your own hands, and it is really just sort of gross. So far, we've merely chipped away at the outline of an individual. We've speculated and used stories to piece together a facsimile of this person's psychology. A person who takes actions with wanton disregard for morality and normality, flexing a position of power and pseudo-star status to a degree that is, deeply uncomfortable. Now, the most common allegation you'll see pushed is creepiness towards people who are under the age of majority. While we don't have a ton of evidence for this, we can extrapolate from their writings and overt thirsty boy nature that it is quite likely to have happened. Their overactive libido on full display on almost every single social media that they have. Dr. Sumerian, an SCP writer, former staff member, and YouTuber, would release 4 videos over 3 years about Admin Bright. In one of these videos, Dr. Sumerian recites a receipt of one such interaction that we can confirm, in which Admin Bright replies to an underage user announcing their age with,
"You're only as old as the thing you're feeling. Gropes much better."
This is a horrific twist on "you're only as old as you feel," and this was allegedly in the Wiki's main IRC chat. Yes, slowly but surely we're getting a little bit closer to home, aren't we? Now, me personally, I don't need more than that to not want my children ever being on the SCP chat rooms ever again. Again, this could be chalked up to just a funny haha joke, but Dr. Sumerian in the same video would go on to say that Bright also had a habit of sharing adult content in rooms where minors most likely were. And based on SCP's user base at the time, I'm inclined to believe that there were definitely minors. Dr. Sumerian, by his own account, didn't see much of this personally, however. For years, Admin Bright would be spoken about in hushed tones on corners of the internet, typically SCP discords. There was always a stink around the man behind the mascot, but little had been done. People's concerns had been largely dismissed. It could be argued a single event would set the wheels into motion that finally broke SCP's open secret. In 2018, during Pride Month, the SCP Wiki changed the SCP logo's black fill color with a pride flag. This enraged some users, and others saw it as aesthetically disheartening. Others saw it as an immersion break for the site. Considering this a political statement on what is ostensibly a horror-writing wiki was also a point of contention. This drama would culminate in arguments and mass bans in relation to downvote brigading and heated discussions. The situation escalated to new heights when infamous internet cancer patient, Mr. Medicare, made a video and subsequent live stream about the topic, causing new attention and influx of debate into the community. To wit, the SCP Wiki, subreddits, and discords would all go into full damage control mode, flailing around a shotgun and banning anyone with dissenting opinions on the aesthetic choice or the political signaling. Personally, the pride flag thing doesn't really bother me. It's fine if you want to use your platform to signal boost for marginalized people, but it does become complicated when your community is made up of multiple contributors with varying ideologies and perspectives. This would result in several offshoots of SCP forming, which would pick up some minor traction, as authors were either banned or left in protest of SCP's handling of this situation. Now enter the RPC Authority, a more or less blackjack and hookers version of SCP that was not content to just sit in their own new wiki and Discord. They were talking at length about the issues plaguing the SCP community and would take to gossip sites like Kiwi Farms to spread dissent. The SCP Wiki did not have clean hands in this situation either. And what followed was 2 years of back and forth ops against each other, primarily hosted on Discord. This included doxing, placing plants in each other's communities, and the dissemination of behind-the-scenes information. Some real high-tier spy antics here until you remember that it's a bunch of fat men sitting behind a keyboard. The flames were now being fanned, and the water was beginning to boil. One of the first to fall to this new level of attention would be a user that we have already mentioned, Cyantruese, a friend of Admin Bright. And it was from this user that we began to see a narrative emerge. The narrative of normalization of adult behaviors on site. We also seem to become aware that staff is quite aware of his behavior. Now, we will speak of Cyantruese more in a future video, but I will commend them for at least providing evidence against these other users. Cyantruese says in these messages, God, if Bright did this, now to back up here, I'm kind of neutral on Bright too in the grand scheme of things. I wrote blank with his characters in high school, and we were in a couple of chats now and again, but he had some weird interactions with NSFW stuff. For instance, one of the chats we were in was a Discord server when I was in high school. My friends and I were psyched that a real admin, TN, was in there with us. I was 17 at the time, and the ages of the other people ranged from about 14 to 18 or 19. Anyway, one day we were talking. We didn't talk much because obviously, a group of teenagers and a middle-aged man in his 40s with 2 wives have very different lives and approaches to consuming and creating content. But he started talking about all this intimate stuff with his wives, and we all sort of got uncomfortable. One of the younger members who was 14 was like, there are minors in this chat, lol. And I was also like, hey, there are minors here, lol. Lamau, I'm literally a minor. Everyone here is a minor, but Bright just kind of kept going. I mentioned it offhandedly in the SCP podcast server over voice call once, and the general response was, oh yeah, Bright does things like that. So, moral of the story? Eyes emoji. The reply comes, God. Can't even say I'm surprised because I brought my worries up to Dexanote about him, and his response was, I trust Bright, but yeah, he did used to ask female site members for nudes and stuff. I mean, let's not forget about when he turned, was it 50, I think? And he went on his blog and he was like, hey, everybody, for my birthday, I want to see naked pictures. That makes me happy. But, no really intimate stuff. And everyone was like, yeet themselves out of a 5-mile radius. This is a leaked DM provided by Cyantruese to another user, and I will read it in its entirety. Here we can see a recounting of Admin Bright oversharing about their intimate times with people who are indeed under the age of majority. The same thing that got everyone mad at Miranda Sings. But yeah, Dr. Bright, he's probably just a victim of the toxic gossip train.
All aboard the toxic gossip train.
Here's another DM shared by Cyantruese with another member of the harassment team named Solus. And Solus says, in general, it is known that Bright does sexual things. It's not known the degree or the creepiness or the manner in which those intimate times are had. And Cyantruese says, I think for me, and apparently many other people, his position as an admin normalized behavior that would otherwise be a red flag, and in many cases exacerbated the dangerous dynamic because people don't want to say no to someone in his position. And indeed, here it's unveiled that Bright's activity is a known quantity to at least some degree. Discussion of this occurring 3 years before the official ban of Bright. Here we can see a fuller picture of Soulless's stance on the issue. Feel free to pause the video and read this at length if you would like. I find it very illuminating. As we can see here, Admin Bright was clearly well insulated and being protected to at least more than some degree, which is illustrated by the meandering tone of this person on the anti-harassment team, which doesn't give me a whole lot of faith for the capabilities of the anti-harassment team. Another victim on the Kiwi farms who goes by the name Insurgency Moon, or Z, who was personally responsible for the banning of many other degenerates. We will discuss them in a future video. But Z posted this conversation with Modern Erasmus, who is also staff. A few choice selections from this text are, so you're just gonna ignore his history of creepiness, such as going after young lesbians on Reddit, or the sheer amount of PDF file stuff that he wrote in Tales before he was made to change it? Modern Erasmus replies, as well as a ban on participating in NSFW spaces to prevent incidents like with Gabriel Jade or Subtle T, who are going to be featured in future videos as well. If anyone else did it, they'd be banned years ago, but you are protecting him. Modern Erasmus replies, I'm not ignoring it, but posting of adult content on Reddit isn't really any of our business. Z says, but I suppose nothing's ever going to be done about this, so it's pointless to talk about it. Modern Erasmus says, if he's approached any minor, that would be a very different story. And if you have any information or evidence that that has happened, well, then that's something I'd like to know. Z replies, sure. Unless actual laws are broken, staff will just cherry pick what they want. What a clapback indeed. And the truer truth was never spoken. We can compare this to allegations lobbied by Shaggy Dreadlocks, a former member of the anti-harassment team who tried to lead a private inquiry into Bright's actions on the wiki. They contend this inquiry led them to being ousted from the community. This occurred roughly 1 year before the official ban. Shaggy says, I was kicked out of the Cool Kids Club over this, lol. I did all I can do. With the other half, me being mad at anti-harassment and doing my own inquiries getting me the boot. Getting super pissed that he wasn't being investigated or banned is in part why I am not staff anymore. It cannot be understated how much damage control the SCP staff was doing during this time of scrutiny online. If people thought you were from Kiwi Farms or some rival wiki, you would be banned and blacklisted, and there are countless tales of this occurring on their wiki, subreddit, and discords respectively. Now, we could give staff the benefit of the doubt and say that, well, they were under a stressful situation and didn't really have anything concrete, but as I've outlined earlier in this video, the signs were all there. Hey guys, do you see this trail of breadcrumbs? This big-ass fucking highway of breadcrumbs that nobody seems to be looking at? Well, you're gonna get banned for talking about it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to put the writing, the off-site behavior, and the attitude together and say, gosh, I'm like 90% sure that this person is gonna turn out to be a problem in some way. The most infamous location for the adult activities on the wiki was known as Neutral Zone, an area known for being a bit of a no-go zone for kids, and a place housing the ERP side of SCP internally on IRC. It was also known by, at the time, head admin Rajit/Pixelated Harmony. Spooky Bee asks, hey, what's the Neutral Zone? And Rajit says, it used to be an official debate channel, and now it's a side channel that exists. Very descriptive. It's not the best crew in there, Pauls and VAE and some other not-so-ne'er-do-well SCP members hang around in there. And per Cyantruese's statements, it appears that Bright was known to frequent this place of ne'er-do-wells, this being known as early as 2017 at the very latest. In fact, it would not be unfair to say that people involved in this part of the community may have received preferential treatment, as was alleged by SCP author of some infamy, Kinch the Knife Blade, on Twitter. It feels like SCP staff would have been a lot more serious about my harassment case if I was doing furry ERP and been in the club. I really need to know how furry ERP figures into this. Well, go into the only SCP chat that we're both in and you can kinda see my mad logic springing from that. The common through line of all this being a narrative that we've seen all too often in tales of digital degenerates. This is normal. This is just how things are. So what can we assume from all of this? Well, we can assume that Admin Bright's behavior was known and tolerated, if not actively suppressed by staff. We can assume that Admin Bright helped cultivate an adult-oriented playground of power users and staff, and we can assume that the staff who were in the know either could not or would not act against them. The people monitoring this evolving situation for years would breathe a collective sigh of relief when Admin Bright announced his retirement in 2020. Not the end of the story, no, simply a new chapter. Admin Bright posted the following titled, "Retirement."
Hey friends, real life is stressful. On site, I feel like we keep fighting the same fights with new people. I've been at this for more than a decade, but I've only written like one tale in the past 4 years.
What kept you so busy?
And while I know many of you, the majority of people who I knew well have been gone for years. Everyone moves on, except for me. And now me. I'm tired, and I'm stepping away. No idea for how long or if I'll come back and visit. Hell, I might be inspired to write again, but I'm leaving all the IRCs and the staff chats, and I'll see y'all later. Maybe. People know how to get a hold of me if they need me. I do want to say I love you all, and I'm proud of you. Should you ever need me, I'll be there. But I've watched this site turn from a wretched hive of scum and villainy into a place that genuinely cares. I'm sorry more people don't see the work, the blood, sweat, and tears that you all put into this place. You're doing amazing. You are amazing. Keep up the good work. Never be afraid to change and grow. Bright, signing off.
I find it really interesting that the sign-off was never be afraid to change and grow. This coming from a man who consistently never changes or grows. How do you reconcile that within yourself? Ego, I guess. Debate would center around this retirement, some believing it to be forced, others declaring victory for having bullied Bright off of the internet. Clearly, information against Admin Bright had still not reached most of the main site, as this retirement announcement is met with well wishes by staff and users alike. It wouldn't be until Dr. Bright was discovered continuing to LARP as his in-universe character on TikTok that people began to cry for his ban from the site. And this is Bright's TikTok, and wow, look at that, he's got 1,000 views. He's really doing big things over here, isn't he? It appears the man could just not stop himself from riding the coattails of his own fictional counterpart for as long as humanly possible. In this example, from his TikTok, we can see him in 2021 sporting his character's signature medallion and commenting over video featuring a child in the creepiest way possible.
Monkey, good. Monkey, real good.
monkey real good? What the fuck is that supposed to mean? You realize that somebody's daughter sitting there trying to make an innocent little TikTok, and then this fucking creep rolls around and he's like, oh, I gotta make this into a situation that's all about me and my little medallion and my hairy little monkey. I don't understand how an individual that is clearly this deranged is just allowed to exist on the internet for as long as he has. I ask again, how is it possible that this man flew under everyone's radar for so goddamn long? My God. Finally, in 2022, the Wiki would officially ban Admin Bright, and their statement is as follows. Unwelcome sexual attention, including sending users those types of messages, pressuring that type of discussion or interactions, or repeated unwanted flirting, repeated inappropriate social contact, such as requesting/assuming inappropriate levels of intimacy with others, encouraging any of the behaviors defined by the harassment policy. And this is where we find the official Bright timeline as well, commenting on article removals relating to themes of adolescent endangerment. Regardless, the vagueness of this statement and reference to an unreleased omnibus report against Bright infuriated many, as the true extent of this man's crimes could not be known. Again, I have to reiterate that the anti-harassment team does this to protect the victims and the wrongfully accused, but I don't consider that a valid excuse. On the SCP Wiki articles, there's a thing known as redaction, putting a black box over sensitive information. You could release the report with that information redacted, or you could release summaries of every report with identifying information changed. This level of vagueness just grinds my gears. Tell us what that degenerate did! Don't act like you don't know how to redact information. Further compounding my frustrations with all of this is the fact that there is no sign that any of this evidence has ever been handed over to local or federal authorities. If there was evidence of interaction with minors, you absolutely should have turned it over to the authorities. This is often the case with the SCP staff and mod team. We will see in this series that they fail multiple times to produce any tangible results, with Kiwi Farms doing far more to damage these degenerates' reputations than the actual people entrusted with keeping the community safe. Despite my frustration, though, not all is lost. We have some very damning testimony. One from an unconfirmed source on Reddit, and one with screenshots galore. Our first account comes from user Inkstained Goblin on Reddit. Thread is titled R.E. Bright. Content warning for SA. Okay. I really don't want to make this a big part of this subreddit or my participation in the community, but people keep asking why Bright is shunned now, and the reason is that Admin Bright, the person who used his SCP avatar as a proxy, preyed on minors online, allegedly. I knew him before he joined the SCP community at all. He was already suspect at the time because he role-played teenage female characters with their quote-unquote butts waggling. My wife and I moved in with him after that butt-waggling incident because, well, we were desperate and homeless, because some trusted friends put us in touch, because we were scared, because there was nowhere else to go. He greeted us with tickets to a Ren fair, but he suggested that we should go in costume. My wife was offered a number of dresses that his wife had. He gave me a kilt that barely covered my crotch and told me that a true Scotsman wouldn't wear underwear under that kilt. I was so uncomfortable, but I'd be homeless without him, so what choice did I really have? My wife and I lived in his basement. Yeah, were you chained to the radiator down there? Was this a choice you'd make? One day we did a drinking game. It's always good to drink with creeps, isn't it? We told him that we were going to do that drinking game, so he knew that we'd be drunk as hell that night. We trusted him. It's normal to tell your roommates if you're going to be drunk so that they'll know what to expect of you. Is that normal? I don't tell my roommates anything. I'm like, pay half the rent and shut the fuck up. That was one night of all nights that he decided to wander downstairs in the middle of the night. I remembered collapsing on the bed. I remember him putting his fingers into me, which I would never have accepted sober, but I was drunk and 18 and relying on him for housing, so I didn't tell him not to, even though I was terrified. I frankly don't know if he did anything further because there are a lot of entirely blank spots in my memory regarding that night. All of this happened at the exact same time that he was creating Jack Bright, the character. All of this happened at the same time that people brushed aside the fact that Bright was creepy around women and minors, whatever. All of Bright's weird, intimate things, it was all created in the context of the fact that he, the author, assaulted a drunken teenager and thought that he did nothing wrong. Heavy, bro. I avoided engaging in the community for years and years because he held power, even by reputation. I don't have proof. It's just a horrible thing that happened to me. And the SCP community has been brushing off the fact that Bright is a creep for years. His being banned from the community was the catalyst that I needed to feel safe here. I'm delighted to engage in the community and might well write something for the wiki itself, but it's only because I know that admin Bright is no longer a part of this space. Seems like a little too late, but I suppose better late than never. I know he takes satisfaction in the idea that Bright, the character, cannot be excised from SCP lore. I know that he still uses being the creator of Bright to draw people towards himself. I know that him being the real Bright is still a vector through which he draws in victims. This is why I support shifting the character from Bright to Shaw. This is why I don't fully trust people who insist on Bright as the name for their favorite SCP avatar. I recognize that this is basically an entirely emotional appeal. Another time, I could probably write for you a whole essay about how Jack Bright isn't even that good a name. You're just used to it, but right now, for real, it is an absolute monster's self-insert. He hurt people who are part of the community. Consider not writing about that fuck anymore. Please. There's some deep pain in there. A fire of vitriol that I would like to stoke. Make Bright burn brightly in the flames of justice! Which it doesn't look like is going to happen anytime soon, aside from being kicked off of a website which he considered his whole life. Now again, all of this completely unconfirmed, but in my head, yeah, it sounds about right. Again, I can't confirm this. These are allegations of an unknown person with no other evidence to support the statements besides the image that we now have of Admin Bright. But our next independent reporter brought receipts in their Twitter article, Skeletons in the Amulet. And it should be noted, in a now deleted Tumblr post, Admin Bright mocked 40-year-old men dating 20-year-old women. On screen now, you can see an over 40-page document by Daisy Bell, and we can see that life was not so good for her. She was vulnerable, and she was a fan of Dr. Bright. She made contact with Bright, and Dr. Bright clearly took advantage of her fragile state and used her to satiate his own interests, such as the previously listed receiving nudes via text. It's an extensive document that we might cover in the future, but for now, we'll leave a link to this damning article in the description for you. Honestly, it's a lot of cringe on Bright's behalf. Daisy trying to vent some of her frustrations to Bright, being met with, "Will you RP with me, 3? Bull hockey. It's honestly just gross. I can't imagine how a human being could hear her emotional cries for help and only think with their junk. If this is what Bright was like all along, well, we have to ask, how many more women are there like this one? This report by user DaisyBellJPEG kind of wraps up everything that we've speculated together. We see the behavior of a monster and a predator, finding a fan, taking advantage of their psychological state and wrapping them into a long-distance ERP situation, and including his own wife in this degeneracy. We've seen this before on the channel, we've seen it all over the internet, and it is proof of the most concrete allegations against Bright. The pestering for images, just as was highlighted in their FetLife account earlier in this video. And the site staff can't play dumb about this. As early as 2011, Admin Bright was the head of new membership, in which he included a request for money and nudes. So we see a wiki page on how to join this site, and we scroll on down to the humorous notes.
Don't forget, nude self-pictures and monetary donations are always welcome and may help process your application. Not really, struck through. Yes, really. Final note, no ponies.
Yeah, that's really quirky and fun. That makes the thing that you said before way more better. And of course, as one would expect, there is at least one confirmed instance of somebody actually sending requested nudes. Charming. We also see concrete evidence of this behavior in 2017 on their personal Tumblr, which was associated with the SCP official Tumblr.
Tomorrow's my 36th. I'm twice 18, doubly a legal adult, and able to run for president. In lieu of birthday wishes, I have 2 requests. Come out and play with us at Clash of Ages in Birch Run. Or if not, I would appreciate topless photos of yourself or your significant other. Whatever. It's a thing that makes me happy. They are for my own personal smiling. I would love to see my Tumblr message flooded with sexy selfies. If you don't want it there, my kick is Kappa Duckman, and if you don't want it, that's fine too. It's something that makes me happy.
Yes, how many titties will it take to fill that void in your life? The world may never know. Now, the SCP Wiki has had some trouble deciding what to do about Bright in the fandom. Some writers have rebranded the character as Elias Shaw, which I believe is inherently stupid. That's like if under Ronald McDonald's makeup, he was actually Jeffrey Epstein. You want to slap clown makeup on someone like this and call it okay? That doesn't work for me. Sorry. I stand with Daisy Bell's hashtag delete Bright. I have rarely issued a call to action in my videos, but at the very least, I do want to see this gone from SCP. Delete Bright is the only correct answer. From Daisy Bell's DM leaks alone, we know that this man is reveling in your inability to rid yourself of the bright blight that he's casted upon your wiki. Do not let him have that victory. Do the right thing. Hashtag delete Bright. Go to Twitter, post it right now. Make sure to @ me and I'll heart it or something. There are still people out there who think that this character is cool or funny. There are people who still like this part of the SCP canon. And if nothing else, the administrators owe us the removal of this sex pest from the wiki. His character and his author page should be removed without hesitation. And the fact that it still exists boggles my mind. I feel like I have adequately painted a picture of a grotesque man whose libido is more important to him than his actual contributions to the wiki, that he rode his pseudo-celebrity status right into a dumpster fire, and I am personally glad that he's no longer part of the wiki. The wiki's a better place without you and your cohorts. If I can end on one final point, it is this. It's said that cleanliness is next to godliness. If your bedroom is any indication of your closeness to the Almighty, well, you are the furthest thing from him. While this has been absolute hell to dig through, I think that it is information that needs to be brought to light. And of course, as you'd guess, there are many associates, compatriots, friends, and acquaintances that we will be covering in future videos, as I do want this to become a series on my channel. Do you recall the Plague Doctor SCP? Oh, Everybody loves the Plague Doctor SCP, but I got a little bit of bad news for you. It was created by a creep as well, and we'll see about that in the next video. Fame is a drug. Any individual is capable of acquiring fame through a multitude of vectors, but with fame comes notoriety, and notoriety opens doors that would otherwise remain closed. Some such doors should stay closed, and it is what a person does when confronted with such a door that defines their right to keep that fame. We've heard many a tale of people who have fallen to their own fame in pop culture and social media. In the first episode of this series, we tackled Drbright, a man whose fame led him to cultivating a dark corner of the SCP fandom. In today's episode, we will dive into a deeper corner of that same darkness. If you would like to see the Drbright episode, perhaps you missed it, we'll pin it in a comment, leave it in the description, and on the end card for you. The writers of some of the earliest SCPs would easily become pillars of the community. Among many of the early SCPs of note are SCP-682, a nigh unkillable reptile with a desire to kill the entirety of the human race, SCP-096, an emaciated humanoid who would hunt down anyone who saw its face, regardless of distance or the method of observation, SCP-173, a statue that only moves when you blink, and has a passion for destroying the crunchy parts of your neck. Among all of these SCPs, though, there is one that rose to prominence outside of the community. One early SCP whose star power persists even today, despite its disturbing origins. The entity in question is SCP-049, or as he is more commonly known, the Plague Doctor. The Plague Doctor was one of the first early SCPs that had that right mix of horror and mystery that just made it stick. SCP-049 is, for all intents and purposes, a Plague Doctor, whose robes and mask are what one would expect. His anomalous properties being that anyone he touched would be rendered dead almost immediately, and then resurrected as a shambling corpse. His objective being to rid the world of some vague pestilence that was never really expounded upon. His interview logs and remorse over his actions in some cases in the article both humanized and created even more intrigue around the character. This star power would be further increased when popular YouTube SCP narrator The Volgan lended his voice to the character, making SCP-049 one of the first fully fleshed out and first fully voice-acted SCPs. But we're not here to talk about SCP-049. No, we're here to talk about one of the two authors of the current SCP-049 document, and that one being Gabriel Jade, who is still listed as co-author of the current documentation and originator of the first version. Unlike Drbright, Gabriel Jade was a one-hit wonder for the most part. The cult popularity of the Plague Doctor, though, was really all he needed to cement himself as a large part of the community. The Plague Doctor and his species, depending on the canon, became so much larger than the individual monster. Of all the SCP art on the internet, it's kind of hard to contend with the enormous amount of fan art dedicated to the Plague Doctor. That includes the kind of art that us normalos don't normally tend to view. Now, there's really no way to bury the lead with this video. The contents of the video and the content of the receipts in the video are of a highly disturbing and sensitive nature. Out of respect for the victim, I will be dropping as little concrete information about them as possible. Also, due to the nature of the documents in question and the content of them, I'll not be able to show many of them in their entirety. It's just not possible on YouTube, and maybe any other platform if I'm being honest, so this story will be a lot of me summarizing conversations and logs and receipts, but stay keyed in, because this story has many twists and turns that are quite complicated to navigate in retrospect. But before I begin this all too tragic tale, I must prompt a disclaimer. Do not seek to contact or harass anyone named in these events. We are not vigilantes. It's not within our domain to take justice for the victims. That was the job of the SCP staff and local authorities, and it would appear that again, as was the case with Bright, SCP staff failed spectacularly in this capacity. Please do not seek to harass them as well, because their failures are, of course, their own loads to bear. With that out of the way, let's get into the crimes of Gabriel Jade and his associates. Around August 2018, Gabriel Jade would begin a disturbing ERP discord with his victim and subject that we will refer to as Insurgency Moon, as this would be her handle when she dropped receipts and evidence onto the Kiwi farms. Now, ERP is no oddity on the internet. It's been around since AOL had chat rooms, but two things make this server especially harrowing. One is the age of the victim, who was 16 or 17 and by their own accounting coerced into this, and the second is the content of the ERP that was being done. Without laying too much narrative pipe, the ERP featured themes of imprisonment, non-consent, mind-breaking, and subjugation through force, all of which took place in the quote-unquote SCP universe. The character, played by our victim, is what is known as a Karcist. These are modified humans who practice a religion known as Sarkicism. They are capable of regeneration and typically only have the internal organs of lungs, a heart, and a brain. This makes them very durable and typically only killable with fire. So, I want you to let that sink in for just a minute. This underage girl's ERP character is functionally immortal, which means the things that can be done to her are exceptionally dark. Bobbius, a banished member of the SCP community, recounted some of his memory of events. From this ERP server on Kiwi Farms, by their accounting, there were RPs of SA involving sharpened implements and other strange devices that even the weirdest of Rule 34 artists would not begin to imagine to draw. This is all under the watchful eye of Gabriel Jade's ERP character, who would watch such things unfold through monitors, self-gratifying himself all the while, of course. This recounting would later be backed up with a full Google Doc that we'll discuss a little bit later. Bobbius's recounting, though, would quickly highlight the very thing that would bring this darkness to the light of day, Gabriel Jade's hubris. For you see, Gabriel Jade was not content to keep this to himself. Oh no, he wanted to bring in other people to torture the fictional character played by Insurgency Moon, as we can see by DMs leaked by Cyantruese, another banished SCP user. Iconoclast is Gabriel Jade, for the record.
This is the scene with Esco so far. Chat name Dave.
And then he links a paste bin, which is all about Gabriel Jade sitting in his Class D cell, and his dick was 00111000. Cyantruese says, I'm sure it's hot. Gotta get my weed first, though. Also, HHH, SCP prawns. Why did I think it wouldn't be? Iconoclast, 3. Cyantruese, I just ate this cupcake with like a gram in it. I can't wait to see what happens. I tasted that shit. Gabriel Jade says, oh,
surprised emoji.
Cyantruese, Jesus Christ, that was a long RP. Y'all wrote that in real time?
Post the 2 a piece a day. We've been going for a bit at the server that you won't enter until blank's birthday.
Cyantruese says, oh, gotcha. That was wild. Esko's a freak. Good.
Yeah, he is. Flames emoji.
How many people are in redacted server, and how many of them are main site people? If there's this many people in there and no one's been arrested or whatever, I guess I don't care. So the redacted person is Insurgency Moon, and yeah, as long as nobody's been arrested, we could do whatever we want, guys. Nobody found out and nobody's in trouble yet, so surely we will never suffer repercussions for these things. Repercussions are here, only in the form of a YouTube video to start, but the snowball is building against you is what I want you to know. This is in 2018. It's taken this long for it to catch up with you, but yeah, it runs real fast. It's pretty sticky. You're not gonna get rid of this one, is all I'm saying. Gabriel Jade says,
there are like 18 members.
so they meander for a little while talking about pot cupcakes or something like that. Who really cares? They also throw in there that they'd like to gather a harem of SCP authors. So we rejoin the conversation with Gabriel Jade saying,
oh, you need to go into the role request and emote on the things in there. It's super weird, but that's what unlocks those channels. Specifically the I am over 16 one.
Yeah, 16. That's an interesting choice. How'd you do that? You just rolled a d20 and went with it? It's not the age of consent, you know, for an ERP server.
Yeah, you just have to be 16 to join. We got 20 people signing right now.
Cyantruese says 16. That's honestly gross. I feel bad for pretending to even be cool with that. Especially since they talk about butt stuff in general chat, where there are presumably people under 16.
Not gonna lie, I totally get where you're coming from. But that said, I don't think there's anyone under 16 on the server at this point.
Oh yeah, except for the woman that we're all maltreating in there. Cyantruese says there are several that don't have it as a role, several that have other roles and not that one, and several that don't have any.
Gabriel Jade says, I see. Honestly, haven't put any thought into it beyond keeping the truly visceral stuff locked behind age-restricted chats.
Yes, again, age-restricted, except to the person that's being subjected to these horrors. Cyantruese says, shrug emoji. I gave up on trying to get other people to be as much of a stickler for those type of age requirements as I am. I get that it's annoyingly lawful neutral. Annoyingly lawful neutral? Why is it annoying for you? How is it lawful? I have a lot of questions here. But we'll carry on.
Of things to be a stickler for, it's not a bad one.
I don't care if 15-year-olds read books with those types of scenes. It's not the content, it's the interaction with real people thing.
Well, 17 is the age of consent in my state and in Redacted's home province, which is the main reason her age never bothered me. Yee, I feel ye.
Then Cyantruese comes through with, you know, a legal definition, which is not the thing that you just said. It's the age of consent for intimacy with other minors. A 17-year-old cannot legally bang an adult in the U.S., I will fact-checking myself now.
I'll take your word for it.
Cyantruese says, it's not easy to find relevant results because I'd have to dig through the entire Wikipedia article. All I know is that I used to misconceive that age of consent means consent with anyone also over that age. And then I found out from whatever source Tumblr post that that's actually incorrect. Whatever. If anyone says anything about me leaving, just say I'm stuck up about age laws. I don't care. It's a good thing to be stuck up about. I don't want them to think it's some sort of drama. And then,
salute emoji, 07.
I'm honestly officially scared of intimate relations with people under 21 at this point. I can be official now since I just turned 21. As I became an adult, I realized that a lot of them do not have adult emotional capacity. Yay, yet. Like, I don't know. These Tumblr kids that live with their parents and look 13 at 19, and I sound like an asshole, but I feel like a PDF file whenever I'm attracted to someone that seems childlike or inexperienced. Redacted almost freaked out on me a little for that reason, but once her nervousness went away, her behavior was like normal in terms of maturity.
That's how I feel about Redacted as well. Like, I wouldn't be into it if it weren't here pushing for it. Shrug.
In the same opening salvo by Cyantruese were DMs with one Eskobar, a member of SCP site staff and also a rather well-known writer and proofreader.
Dave is Eskobar. Also, you don't have to worry about being graphic. Seriously.
Cyantruese says, noted. I guess that would make sense since you're in an NSFW chat, haha.
If you've read the stuff I wrote with Redacted, you understand that graphic is really not something to be concerned about with me.
Cyantruese says, ha ha ha, true. Yeah, this is really weird. This guy makes me uncomfortable.
I wrote the worst of it, at her encouragement, of course.
Cyantruese, should I give it another read? :P?
I will say, I need to go to bed, but I'm more than willing to hear more about this. I don't know how much good the blank fic is for anyone who wasn't either A, there when it was happening, who could get some happy memories from it, or B, Redacted, who has repeatedly said that it was good for her mental health to have that release.
Yeah. Sounds great. What are you guys doing? This is a teenager who needs help, and you're like, come to our ERP Discord. It does hurt. Cyantruese says, gotcha. I should also sleep, and yeah, we can pick this back up. Thank you for talking to me about all this.
Eskobar says, of course. You seem like potentially good people. You definitely seem less like awful people, so that's a plus. And I'm glad we were able to talk about your history.
Cyantruese, I am also glad. Thank you for being understanding and open about it all. Yeah, and then you vacate that conversation post-haste. Aside from Eskobar just being a complete weirdo during this DM, you might also notice that it's 2019, a year after the previous DM, and yeah, Cyantruese seems to have turned a new leaf. He's a changed man. No more :3s in his future. And some would say that's a change for the better. So we continue on with the revelation of this Discord group, which would be met with a sense of recognition by members on the Kiwi farms. One account by Bobbius recounts them having been in this explicit channel around the age of 15. Now, based on accounts personally gathered by parties that wish to remain anonymous, it can be confirmed that all 3 parties in the ERP chat all engaged with inviting people into the server. Those 3 being Insurgency Moon, Gabriel Jade, and Eskobar. Now, it's concerning that Insurgency Moon was inviting people into the server, but we have to keep in mind that by her own accounting, she was being groomed into this sort of behavior. Of all the women who have come forward, there are few who have had more evidence against more creeps than she, which can only lead us to 2 conclusions. Insurgency Moon was a glow-in-the-dark honeypot, or she was absolutely groomed into this type of behavior. Considering not a single degenerate that we'll talk about in this series saw any jail time, at least not to my knowledge, I am gonna guess that she was indeed not glowing in the dark. The true contents of the server would not be known until it was leaked in its entirety. Unfortunately, though, it was leaked without any usernames and what they contributed. Interestingly, it was only the last-minute efforts of someone on the Kiwi farms that was able to archive what existed, as the Google Doc and Discord would be mysteriously nuked shortly after the first leak. Isn't it kind of weird how that keeps happening? Huh. It's almost like SCP Foundation was trawling Kiwi farms to try and nuke anything that made them look bad. Now, I've read the contents of this article, and I can say that it would be easier to name the things not on display here. Every single dark proclivity was on full blast. The only thing missing was a shred of human decency. I cannot underemphasize how much of this ERP is just dancing on the grave of human decency. Go ahead and think of the most messed up sort of RP that you can, with the worst person possible, and whatever you're imagining, yeah, it's worse than that. Honestly, reading through this 160-page madness of perversions gone bad is quite literally depression fuel. We would get further confirmation when Insurgency Moon would show up herself and start dropping allegations against many users, including Gabriel Jade, who went by Iconoclast on Discord, as we saw. You can also recognize him by his use of an SCP-049 profile picture. Much like Drbright, he wanted everyone to know that he was the Plague Doctor guy. This is one of the first DMs released by Insurgency Moon, with Gabriel Jade.
I feel like this is gonna be you the first time you spread them for me.
Oh look, a link to an adult video. Sent to a 17-year-old. How wonderful. She responds,
I've been getting hooked on these ever since you showed me that other clip. Oh, less than sign colon 3 emoji. Really pick thumb in about 54 seconds.
She says, if my lord has more to show me what will happen to me, I'll be very grateful. She continues, sorry if I'm poking a bit too much, less than minus less than emoji sign looking sideways. I thought you enjoyed getting domed by other guys. Oh, that's just some information to drop in there as well, I guess. He says,
I do, but physically, I don't like getting banged. I just like fucking. That's part of the reason that I love dating a guy that love having guys do him while I watch. Or he sucked me. I'm vicariously subbing through you.
This is so weird. She says, that's very interesting. But are you still enjoying this?
Yeah, just came from chatting with you and watching some adult videos, about to make dinner.
Okay. I'm glad that you enjoy me, my lord. There is so much to unpack here. Much of what he said is, of course, concerning, but what she said seems to be encouraging, almost. But it needs to be pointed out that she is a victim of a grooming situation, and yes, sometimes people like this tend to hypersexualize or normalize this behavior with the person that they're talking to, that they spend time with. Now, the reason for doing this isn't necessarily because they think that this other person is good for them. They simply see them as basically the only lifeboat among some stormy seas. Now, of course, this server's existence was not a mystery. It was a known quantity, and the second it was brought up, people began looking into it. SCP at the time was very aware of the allegations, and soon the rumor mill began to churn out a narrative that we had seen in the previous installment of this series with Drbright. And the narrative was that SCP staff was covering this stuff up, talking about the Kiwi Farms leak, and any accusations of staff abuse of power was quickly dealt with. Users who refused to drop it were banned and called quote-unquote low-value users. You're really doing the most to make me believe that you aren't hiding something when you ban everyone who says that you're hiding something. You know, when people have nothing to hide, they're usually able to drop receipts in order to prove it. It's just the digital age that we live in. So if you're doing the right thing, you probably ain't got much to worry about. But if you're doing the wrong thing, yes, it becomes rather clear pretty quickly. It would be a while before an almost unsung hero of these allegations entered the fray, a Kiwi Farms user by the name of, I'm squinting at my paper here, Lil Misogynist. I really never thought I'd say that in a sentence. The unsung hero, Little Misogynist. We really do live in a cloud world, don't we? This user had been watching the drama unfold and finally could take no more as the SCP anti-harassment team continued to deny knowing about Gabriel Jade and Eskobar. First showing us an official statement by new head of the anti-harassment team, Everett Mann. This post reads as follows. 2 users, one of whom was a member of staff and the other a former member of staff, were discovered to have exchanged NSFW messages with a minor. Both have been removed from the site and permanently banned. There are rumors that anti-harassment were aware of this situation and attempted to cover it up, and this is entirely false. We received a rumor about the incident near the beginning of this year, but in an initial interview with the case's victim, they claimed at the time that nothing inappropriate had occurred and that they did not desire us to investigate this incident further. We believed the victim's account and acceded to their wishes. Then they revealed that they had dropped concrete information prior to this announcement. Foot meet mouth. So Witness is a little misogynist, for the record. He says, because I've talked to a lot of people about this, and they've observed some very upsetting things. Soulless, go on. Witness, well, give me a moment, and I'll gather some stuff. Okay. Witness, so I'm sure you're probably at least partially aware of this, but Redacted was inappropriately targeted by many older members of the SCP community when she was underage. Redacted, who I think is Eskobar, was definitely the worst offender, but I worry that too many of the other people who hurt her got away with it because she believes that she'd be doing wrong by reporting them. A few weeks ago, I received the following from Redacted. Honestly, the most hurtful thing Jade said was that he'd enjoy taking me in front of you just to see both of our reactions. Taking? In a biblical sense. Gabriel Jade says, I want to make you squirm and moan with pleasure when you've been a good girl. The idea of dominating and deflowering such an inexperienced but not at all ashamed cultist is fucking amazing. I love that you saved your body for your lord to violate and defile. This is horrible. And then he strikes the next sentence out. Not gonna lie, it really turns me on how there are guys like Redacted that want to have you and be gentle and loving with you, but all you want is to worship and be broken by your god. I wonder how much lack of power you'd have to have in your real life in order to live like this online. Like, I get that this is a fantasy for you, but you're involving another person at it, and it's really not cool. So Z says, yeah, about blank. When we talked about the AOC thing in chat the other day, Redacted didn't take it very well. Gabriel Jade says, AOC thing? Yeah, age of consent? How I implied that I wanted to do you, but for real? Ah, not gonna lie, part of me feels bad. It is, however, an easy part to disregard. Yeah, I'm sure it is, scumbag. Z says, well, I mean, I'm not sure if it's right to keep it from Redacted like this. I really don't think a relationship with someone on another continent who I've only ever spoken to over Discord can work out. Yeah, that's entirely understandable. I'm a bit conflicted, to be honest. Having more freedom is what I want, but I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. He says, nods, live your life. That's all anyone can expect from you. Whatever you do, if you do it because it's what you want to do, then it's the right thing to do. That sentence had 4 do's in it. Just fucking do something. Z says, I see. And of course it ends with a disgusting line, for what it's worth, I'm gonna go jerk it thinking about you so I can get some work done, semicolon lowercase p. Soulless sees these receipts and asks, was this in a PM, or is there a community like Discord chat? Witness says, I believe these are from her DMs, but she used to have an ERP server called Redacted, which was populated by a ton of well-known community members, some under the age of 18, and many others well into their 20s. I haven't been in the server for a long time, but yeah, it caused shit like this to happen. And none of that is good news, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we can compare the dates here. Gabriel Jade and Eskobar were both banned on or around May 2nd of 2020. The screenshots from Low Misogynist were dated January of 2020. That concretely proves that allegations were brought up to the anti-harassment team 4 months prior to any official actions by SCP staff. Doesn't this seem like a long turnaround time, even with the sort of bureaucracy that SCP surely has standing over their Wikipedia.
What are you doing?
Me? Just hanging around.
Following their ban, Eskobar would release one of the worst Twitter apologies that I think I've ever seen in my entire life. I don't really know if one could even actually call it an apology, but regardless, I will now read the apology in its entirety. David Eskobar at Escobar David says, "Okay, let's talk about it. I'm banned from SCP. Did I do the thing I was banned for? Broadly speaking, sure. I don't know what particulars were shared with whom, and I'm not particularly interested in hearing about it, but I'm sure the broad strokes are correct. A couple of years ago, I was asked by an individual on the internet to write some adult content. I was told the individual and everyone else involved was, quote, above the age of consent. I assumed that meant adult. Did you know there are a bunch of countries where that only means above 16? Yeah, you're really selling it to me already. And no, I can't even completely claim that I didn't know better. I wrote one thing believing the person I was writing it for was 25. I had her mixed up with another author. I'd been gone forever. My bad. Whoopsie daisy. Then I was told that she was 17. A month or so shy of 18. Oops. Then she asked me to write another thing, and I did that too. Double oops. This is the most ludicrous thing. I love to hate it. How can you be this bumbling? It's supposed to be an apology. I understand it's on social media. You don't want to take it that seriously. But these are some heavy allegations, so at least try to take it seriously. Triple oops. I don't remember if it was explicitly said, quote, who gives a shit, you already wrote the first thing, she's almost 18, and the first thing you wrote was really good, but I had that impression. It's killing me. And you know what? I didn't disagree with the premise. Still don't. You shouldn't interact intimately with people who aren't adults. That's true. I viewed this at the time, and still do, as basically writing on commission. What was the compensation? Someone asked me to write a thing with very specific parameters of what she was looking for, and I wrote the thing. I did it because it seemed to make her happy. She seemed very happy. Every conversation I've had with her since then seemed to confirm that she was satisfied. I didn't then and don't now feel I've harmed anyone. Was the behavior questionable? Oh shit, yeah. It wasn't the best judgment on my part. I got carried away in the rush of having, for want of a better word, enthusiastic fans. This is what we choose to do with enthusiastic fans. It says a lot about your character, you know? I guess that's why we're having this little discussion, isn't it? And to be honest, if I respect the full adult autonomy and intellect of someone who's 18, I don't feel that much differently about someone who's 17.9 years old. Sorry. Was the material I wrote, for lack of a better word, unbelievably fucked up? Oh, you better believe it. I was asked by someone who was into some intense stuff to write some intense stuff. It happened, if you've seen any of it, but we were in the Discord, going through lists of our proclivities, just throwing them in there for shits and giggles. It was basically for laughs. As all cooming definitely is. I didn't, enjoy doing this because there were under 18s involved. I was disturbed as hell by that. Just apparently not disturbed enough to not write the stuff. This is ludicrous. I wouldn't do it again. And I wouldn't recommend anybody else do it. Nobody in the room was harmed except one dude who had, shall we say, emotional reasons to not like what was happening. Long story there, and it's barely my business, and it's definitely not any of your business. Okay, why are we bringing it up? Look, I'm older than most people in the community.
I wasn't the first time I got in and was writing, but by the time I made a reappearance in 2018 when all this went down, I wasn't used to really needing to distinguish between internet adults and internet kids.
He's deranged. On what planet is this an apology? It's a list of the worst excuses ever made.
I mostly just had the feeling of like, we're all just usernames and goofy profile pictures here, so who cares? Because the internet isn't real anyway. And I don't have especially strong feelings about intimacy as some special or potentially important or traumatizing thing. Some folks do. Okay.
What the hell are we even talking about? That is quite a list of words that you just said. I'm not sure that I would want to be caught in 4K saying some things like this. Can I ask you a question, David?
Do you have children? You shouldn't! This situation, the 2 smut segments I wrote, sort of opened my eyes to the whole, oh, there are kids on the internet, and that matters.
Yeah, then he probably started spending a lot more time on the internet.
Sort of too late. I'd already done a thing. I honestly didn't feel that bad about it, given the circumstances, but I knew it would look bad.
You should really hire a PR agent for things like this, you know? The self-representation thing's not a great look.
I sort of just hoped that people wouldn't find out about it. Knowing it would lead to, well, all of this. But people did, and it did, and I did the thing that caused it, so that's nobody's fault but mine. Fair enough.
So just apologize. It's not gonna make it better. It can't fix it, but the least you can do is acknowledge your own actions without giving a list of excuses. 30 tweets worth of excuses or whatever it is.
If you think what I did is as bad as, well, the consensus thinks it is, then, well, okay, I get it. I want kids protected from exposure to that type of stuff that they aren't ready for. And if you gotta hate me to keep that line strong, feel free.
Okay, good. Done and done.
I still don't think I hurt anybody, and I would want to hear from the person who was, quote-unquote, the victim, for lack of a better word.
That is an interesting statement. I'd like to hear what the alternative word is, David.
To establish that I did, in retrospect, I respected her autonomy enough to write the stuff, and I still do. Nobody else's judgment affects me personally.
Nobody else's judgment affects me personally. That's why I felt the need to write these 50 tweets. Okay, cool.
And if you're reading this, which you might, and I did hurt you, in retrospect, in your opinion,
all these caveats,
I'm deeply sorry, and please know I had no intention of doing so. I'm a dumb boomer who was trying to help and enjoyed being complimented for my writing. I usually am those things.
Yeah, just the dumb boomer. Grooming kids on the internet, writing horrible things to children under the age of consent. But we can write it off because dumb boomer. I am mystified.
If you're reading this and you were one of the dozens of other people who were in that Discord server and knew all about it, but you're pretending to not have been involved, well shit, I don't blame you. I'm not giving away your secret. Stay away from all of this.
That is a really strange thing to say, isn't it? If you are also in that server and being a creep, don't own up to it because I'm not going to roll over on you. Cat's out of the bag, baby. We're going to find as many as we can.
There are absolutely people who are going to dogpile on this situation because they're just nosy a-holes who love judging other people based on their interests. And I don't mean mine. None of this is my cup of tea. I mean hers. The quote-unquote victim that lots of you love crapping on.
Does it not seem a little bit weird that you're taking some sort of strange pleasure in the fact that your victim, quote-unquote victim, is being harassed. It's a weird thing to put in your apology, isn't it? Because it seems like a weird thing. But the tweet storm continues.
Oh yeah! Don't think I haven't seen you commenting on this individual's intimate interest with judgment or condemnation. She didn't involve you in this, and neither did I. Her proclivities are and were her business, and the business of those that she asked to involve in it, and you ain't them.
What a quick shift from blaming to defending tweet to tweet. Do you see this verbal agility that's unfolding before us? My God, we've got another one going for the mental gymnastics gold.
If you're reading this and you think was 100% fine and there's nothing wrong with it, I was about to say don't interact with me either, because that's messed up, but I don't mean that. I disagree with that defense of what I did, but I'd still like to talk to someone who has those feelings, because I'm not in a position to cast judgment at this point.
Is the reason that you want to talk to someone who still has those feelings mostly because you are indeed banned from SCP now, and you're just trying to get a lead on some 17-year-olds in a Discord server somewhere? Because that's kind of how this feels.
I think it's important to talk to people who have messed up feelings in this particular regard.
I don't think that's true.
Not appealing my ban. I'm sure my reputation is screwed by now, regardless of what actually happened, because the internet loathes context, and he's a PDF file is way easier to spread than, well, all of this. Which I think most people would agree is, not quite the same.
Honestly, looking at these two things side to side, it looks the same to me. You apologize for this thing. Sort of.
I just always hated when people were accused of things and then pretended that everything was a misunderstanding and everyone was lying and they had no idea what anyone was talking about. No, I used poor judgment, and I have this coming. Sort of. Close enough, at least.
What the fuck? For a professional writer, you're not very good at writing essays, are you, David? I mean, sure, he can make words, but none of them have a point.
I don't know if this is gonna change anyone's mind about me or the situation, but I didn't feel like just completely letting other people run the narrative. Shit, I bet most people won't even bother reading this far.
Well, Red X is not most people. I want to see all the dirt. Lay it all out on the table. Or at least your version of it.
I guess it just gives me anxiety to imagine that most of the people unfollowing or blocking me are doing it based on rumor, speculation, or secondhand shit. If you read this and you feel that way, feel it. It's the most accurate version of the story.
So, is that an admission of guilt, or what am I supposed to think here? You're giving me the old flip double reverse, ain't you? It's not gonna work on me, David.
Some of y'all that I was mutuals with have super strong, absolutist, context-irrelevant feelings about anything involving minors and intimate activity, and blocking me is consistent with that. Fair enough.
Yeah, we're really trying to play in the gray area here. It's not a good look, David. Think twice about it, David.
No crimes were committed. Nothing illegal happened that I know of or was involved with. No pictures or videos of real-life stuff was shared involving anyone under 18 at the time, or at all, actually. That was a server rule. And to my knowledge, no one was hurt.
Except for the girl who was groomed.
I didn't get any jollies from those interactions, if that somehow makes a difference.
Doesn't really know.
I just like writing intimate stuff, and she was asking, and that was good enough for me at the time. If you have any questions, I guess holler at me via DM on here. Don't have many other avenues of contact involving this internet persona. I guess you can DM me via Discord, but that's spotty at best. I guess that's all I got. Take what you will of it.
And of course, there's just one more. Just one more.
If you're reading this and you think I'm just the scum of the earth because she was 17 and I should have known better, well, we may have some disagreements about what harm is, but your heart's probably in the right place. Hope you change your mind about me someday.
Never gonna happen. You wrote this string of 90 Twitter posts, and I'm still like, you've not made any apologies for the things you've done. Excuses everywhere.
If you're reading this and you think I'm the scum of the earth because the stuff I wrote was gross, screw off! It was weird as hell to me too, and I didn't give a shit. Nobody invited you to read it. It didn't affect you. You're seeking glass houses to throw stones at.
Wow, David. Honestly, that was just a hell of an apology. You know, I put apology with quotations around it, since you put quotation around victim. See, isn't that fun? We could do that with all the words. The only thing that could make this apology better is maybe if you pulled out a ukulele. Then surely the internet would have to forgive you.
So okay, let's talk about it. I'm banned from SCP. Did I do the thing I was banned for? Broadly speaking, sure, I don't know what particulars were shared with whom, and I'm not particularly interested in hearing about it. But I'm sure the broad strokes are correct. A couple of years ago, I was asked by an individual on the internet to write porn. I was told the individual and anyone else involved was, quote, above the age of consent. I assume that meant adult. Did you know there are a bunch of countries where that only means above 16?
Okay, but on a more serious note, it is rage bait, isn't it? Let's all just take a second to breathe deeply and maybe scream into a pillow at the top of your lungs. This very apology is full of so many logical fallacies, I couldn't even point them all out. You say you got no pleasure from writing these things, but admitting to getting dopamine from being called a good writer. You say this is contextual, but it really isn't. It is material. The fact is that you wrote ERP smut scenes for a minor. Is it possible that she asked you to do so? Yes, I will concede it is possible. The fact that Insurgency Moon appears to have invited people herself into the server makes that possible, but you clearly don't understand how that behavior could have been normalized. We know if you go into SCP's IRC, you can get doxxed pretty easily, and we know that Gabriel Jade and Eskobar were either part of staff or former staff. The likelihood that she was being threatened with dox or some other threats by staff or Gabriel Jade is obscenely high.
Oh, come on, Red X,
I hear you shouting into the void.
SCP staff would never abuse their power to silence a 16-year-old girl.
You poor, naive soul. There is one little morsel to this story that serves as a bit of a bonus tale. When Insurgency Moon arrived at the Kiwi Farms to tell her tale, she levied accusations against many people. One such individual was Randomini. Her statement is as follows. In late 2017, we found out that we could go to comic conventions together and meet up. I kinda worshipped him because he was a much older guy and wrote some of my favorite tales, and he had so much wisdom to share about life and writing. He acted so interested in me, was kind of touchy, and even talked to me about some stupid smut that I was writing. Life at home was tense, so this was fun, but one day he suddenly invited me to go back to his house with him. Keep in mind that I was 17 and he was a man, at least in his mid-20s, living alone. When I said that my parents definitely wouldn't allow that, he said that they're being controlling and I shouldn't tell them where I'm going. Does it sound like grooming yet to you? Because it sounds like grooming to me. But something felt off, and I'm so glad I followed my instincts. I told my mom, and she screamed at me, not letting me leave on the day. I went online to apologize and explain to him, but his attitude took a 180-degree turn. In PMs, he got furious at me for not coming and said that he didn't care whether my parents were going to punish me. He's just disappointed at me for not coming. I stupidly thought that he was still my best friend afterward, but he was nothing but an abrasive dick. When I mentioned to him how Sunny Clockwork, can't believe a grown-ass adult was this insecure, began bullying me and her friends started sending me crap DMs on Tumblr for my art getting more upvotes, he told me that he didn't care if I died and to just leave the site because he no longer saw any value in talking to me. I was dumb at the time and didn't see it for what it was. And I'm so glad that I didn't go into his house. That was a narrowly avoided end in this Choose Your Own Adventure. I'm glad you see it now. I'm glad you saw it then. Now, this allegation would never go any further and was one of the most highly contested allegations. So contested, in fact, that an alleged SCP admin showed up to shut it the fuck down. A user by the name of Ron Johnson 2015 book would release what can best be described as a conspiracy theory corkboard in Microsoft Paint format, disproving every allegation against Randomini, saying that they had received Skype logs from Randomini that refuted all information provided against them, saying that if Insurgency Moon would allow the release of information, it would further de-anonymize her and she could attempt to refute their claims. And if you're wondering what that conspiracy theory corkboard in Microsoft Paint might have looked like, well, aren't we lucky? We have it right here. The Z/Randomini interaction timeline. Event. Z interacted online with Randomini, a staff member that she was a fan of. Z's claim and or counter evidence is, I kind of worshipped him, wrote some of my favorite tales, so much wisdom to share about life and writing. Event. Z found out Randomini lived nearby. He lives in my city, is the claim. Randomini was a 23-year-old who had recently moved interstate after completing university and had no social network in the city. Randomini also had an active working with children check at the time. Evidenced by the phrases, he was a much older guy. He was a man, at least in his mid-20s, living alone. And then we run into the first online contact between these two users, estimated within 1 month prior to July 29, 2017, when a mutual collaborative work was published on that date. Randomini publicly announces his planned attendance of Oz Comic-Con via Reddit with open invite to meet any SCP fans attending, and of course, Z asked to meet up in person. The evidence, quote, we found out we could go to comic conventions together and meet up. First in-person meeting, 24 September 2017 at Oz Comic-Con Brisbane 2017. Event, Randomini has in-person interaction with a fan. He acted so interested in me. Randomini shows concern as Z offhand mentioned and post hoc played down parental maltreatment. Life at home was tense. I told my mom and she screamed at me, not letting me leave. My parents definitely won't allow it. He said that they were being controlling. Keep in mind I was 16. My parents were going to punish me. Event. Randomini reads unusually graphic content from Z, a 16-year-old, and asks detailed questions about why it was written. Evidence. He even talked to me about some stupid smut that I was writing. Event. Z requests to meet at Randomini's house. Randomini declines and suggests instead meeting in a public place. Evidence. I'm wondering if you have time this weekend to meet up at your place, and I'd be free to hang out this weekend if you want. Was planning on wandering around the CBD and such. Second in-person meeting, 30 September 2017, purchasing art supplies, anticipating Inktober, and attending Brisbane River Fire 2017, a public fireworks event. Event. Both users were participating in the popular month-long Inktober drawing challenge. Z asked to visit Randomini's house for a collaborative art day, both being hobby artists, as well as to test out Iron Lac brand paint markers purchased during the previous meeting. Evidence. One day he suddenly invited me to go back to his house with him. Incorrect. Z made that request. Another quote says, I'll go over tomorrow and bring some art stuff. Event! Staff led to believe that user had kept mother informed of plans. Evidence! He said I'm being controlling and shouldn't tell them where I'm going. Supposedly refuted. Maybe sometime early, my mom won't let me stay out too late this time. And that is via a private Skype log. There was a meetup at staff's house scheduled for the 7th of October 2017, and it was canceled at short notice by the user. Event! Z's parents forbid her from leaving the house. Randomini accepts this as reasonable. Counter proposes meeting up in a public space with other people. Z publicly explained the situation in Site 19, the SCP site's general chat room. Evidence for this, I told my mom and she screamed at me, not letting me leave on the day. I went online to apologize and explain to him. Please go on 19, it's more convenient, and I've already explained the situation there. Which I think again is a Skype log. Event, Randomini frustrated to hear another case of parents controlling and maltreating behavior. Suspects user's mother was not actually being kept in the loop. Evidence, he's just disappointed at me. He got furious at me for not coming. Furious, refuted. You can't just say refuted and make it not true. You realize that, right? So as we can see, this really does just go on, does it not? We sit down and we say, oh, it's refuted because it's from a private Skype log. And it does things like this for a while, but let's skip ahead a bit to the part where it gets really interesting, where the event is Z appears touch-starved, which is, of course, a common indicator of maltreatment because she was seeking hugs and hand-holding, etc. Evidence was kind of touchy. Contact was initiated by Z and unwelcome. Yeah, we're just writing our own narrative here now, aren't we? It's at this point that Randomini recommends that Z contact local child protective services as external evaluators of their home situation. You know, because Randomini's such a good guy. Z, concerned that doing this will separate them from their family, refuses to do so. Randomini accepts her wishes, as he has not witnessed this directly or any bruises, etc. Randomini makes private report of experiences to other site staff, not public-facing, as not directly site management relevant. He does not wish to push for formal harassment claims due to what could be seen as the social awkwardness of a 16-year-old site user. Well, look at Randomini out here making big moves. Isn't he a good guy, everybody? We could trust him. We could trust him, right? And if he is doing something bad behind the scenes, I mean, surely we can count on SCP staff to take care of things post-haste, right? We've got so much evidence saying the exact opposite that I would hope at this point that you are saying right along with me. So as you can see, this thing goes on and on for far longer than it should, basically listing out events and showing no actual evidence aside from the Skype log. At the bottom of it all, they include her original claim, which they've reproduced. And of course, Kiwi farmers were pretty quick to identify this user as a likely SCP mod, which the account adamantly denied with the very bureaucratic statement of, no one posting from this account is currently SCP staff. Well, just reading their post through and reading any official statement by SCP staff is enough to make me about 89% sure that this person is working in some official capacity for that wiki. Cyantruese was one of the first to call out the rather interestingly named Ron Johnson 2015 book, which is apparently a reference to a book published by Ron Johnson called So You've Been Publicly Shamed, which according to Wikipedia includes a long portion on how to hide negative Google search results about yourself through legal processes and IT tools. Now, I don't know about you, but all that seems highly suspicious to me. Why would an alleged SCP mod posting on Kiwi Farms choose that name? I wonder what happens if we Google SCP controversy. Just stuff about the 2018 Pride Month. Wow. I wonder if SCP is actively using Ron Johnson's book as a tool to keep people from realizing that there's been at least 4 sex pests on their site involved in some PDF file stuff. I can't prove any of that, but yeah, I do find it highly suspicious. So further on in the thread, Little Misogynist would point out something better than I can word it from the attached document, refuting Insurgency Moon's claims. I always wanted to point out something that I didn't really comprehend last night, which is that this post employs two strategies that abusers use. The first is that the poster claims that Z was touch-starved, as we read, and repeatedly made physical contact that made Randomini uncomfortable. This detail is actually a huge red flag for me. Abusers will very often lie that their victims were actually the ones who were creepy or manipulative, etc., to create confusion and hostility toward the victim. Despite the seriousness of this accusation, it ultimately depicts Z as a deeply troubled individual, a move made to make readers doubt her mental state, while painting Randomini as a responsible adult, something that the poster repeatedly emphasizes, and yeah, it strikes me as pretty manipulative. End quote. So of course all this, along with the Ron Johnson account basically requesting Insurgency Moon /Z allow themselves to be de-anonymized in order to post proper evidence, was also picked up by several users as threatening. And if it was a scare tactic, well, it worked, because Insurgency Moon has yet to be seen on the internet since that very post. And this is where we have to analyze some statements that are being made. According to several users who knew Insurgency Moon, she was a bit troubled, due in part to a screwed-up home life and other events, not least of which is the ironclad proof of grooming by Gabriel Jade. We have 160 pages of ERP to prove that. Oh, God. You can look it up, but for your own mental sanity, I would encourage you not to. It's not impossible that the claims of Ron Johnson are true. It is not impossible that in some capacity, Insurgency Moon searched for people to cling on to in a vulnerable state. But that doesn't make anyone who took advantage of this any better. In American law, you take your victim as you find them. This statement usually refers to injury and assault laws, but we could apply this to someone in Insurgency Moon's possible situation. If a 16-year-old comes up to you and literally asks you to do illegal things with them, when the Fed's kicking your door, that's not gonna be a viable defense. Do I think Insurgency Moon created fake information? Personally, no, I don't believe that. Do I think she acted in hostility? Yeah. Her name, Insurgency Moon, is a reference to the Chaos Insurgency, a rival group in the SCP universe of former SCP staff hell-bent on the destruction of the SCP Foundation. I think after coming to terms with her trauma, she chose this path and sought to bring down corrupt moderation and behind-the-scenes glad handling. Unfortunately, much like the real Chaos Insurgency in-universe, she was stopped just short of the gate. At least for now. The last message anyone can find of Insurgency Moon is on a page that I will not reveal to protect the victim, and it states, "People are trying to ruin my life. Please do not try to contact me." This is yet another failure of the SCP moderation team. All from one very popular SCP, a single tumor was allowed to grow in the community and eventually do this much damage to a single person. A young woman. A very young woman. While this episode has featured a cast of characters, let us not forget why we're here. Gabriel Jade, one of the two authors of the popular Plague Doctor SCP, was a degenerate groomer who ruined at least one young woman's life, and I take no solace in the fact that they were just allowed to flee the internet and not a single thing was done. We've pointed out that Soulless Singularity, who you might also remember from the Bright video, had information related to this activity for months prior to the ban of Gabriel Jade and Eskobar. Again, they have failed the community on a massive level. Insurgency Moon was not an unknown quantity, and her contributions to the site were not minuscule, and that spark and talent was robbed, not just from the SCP community, but from the internet as a whole. All because these little weirdos and their Dr. LARPing wiki cannot and will not get their shit together ever. The only solace I take in this is that at one point, allegedly, a Plague Doctor SCP movie was in production with Gabriel Jade on board as a writer, at least according to this IMDb page. I'm happy to see that it appears to have not been changed in years, meaning that this project is likely fucking dead. I'm happy you ruined your big break, Gabriel. I really am. I hope you spend the rest of your life as a one-hit wonder from a dying horror writing site. And I hope that this video adds one extra note to your legacy. The fact that you are, in fact, a groomer. As for Eskobar, Eskobar appears to have fled the internet as well, which is probably for the best. After that awful apology, I don't think there's any coming back. So indeed, join us, friends, in the next entry of this series, where we will discuss another one of SCP's infamous groomers. Hopefully, this time I can find something nice to say about how staff handled the situation, but based on how everything's been lining up, yeah, I highly doubt that I will be impressed. When SCP games started coming out, it was only a matter of time before children found the website. SCP Containment Breach would be released in 2012 and was quickly picked up by popular Let's Players. This new signal boost from people as big as Markiplier himself would cause an influx of new users that were not prepared for the monsters hiding within the SCP community. YouTube narrators of SCP documentation would also play a pivotal role in introducing the SCP fandom to a new and younger audience. Most of them are without blame in this. The people we discuss in this series were merely monsters hiding within this community, and today's particular monster, he doesn't get a cute little intro. As far as I can tell, the only thing they brought to the community was pain and suffering. Today we will discuss the monstrous misdeeds of SaXiao. You know what, actually, I don't even care how to pronounce your name. You don't deserve it. You get nothing.
You lose! Good day, sir!
We're just gonna call him Sax from this point forward. Now, Sax is a bit of an anomaly within the community, as he's a bit hard to pin down. He has written very little, and 2 of his articles have been subsequently nuked from orbit, the same pattern that we saw with drbright, a pattern that you should be familiar with by now if you've been keeping up with the series. The other very anomalous thing about this user is the vagueness of his ban, and what appears to be an almost deliberate cover-up. Again, a pattern that we are becoming all too familiar with. The first hints of this monster's reputation would come with a vague post of Kiwi Farms in 2019 by VDNB6, who made allusions to a known person who had been acting creepy with minors in Site 12. Now, if you don't remember, Site 12 is the adult side of SCP's internal IRC channels. Contrary to what you might think, it wasn't all smut, but yeah, there was some ERP going on in there. Much like any adult community, there are a spectrum of topics at play. So this is VDNB6's first statement about this monster. A while back, a PDF file who frequented SCP IRC chats, including several NSFW and roleplay ones, got banned. He was caught doing a lot of creepy shit to younger girls in the SCP fandom, including minors. Now, to my knowledge, a lot of people know what he did, so he probably has no hope of making a return, but here's the issue. He never got an actual disciplinary thread, despite being a longtime member of the community and a writer. The only hint of him being banned is buried in the chat ban page, where the reason is so vague that it could mean a lot of different things. And I do somewhat understand why they do this. I imagine they want to maintain their image and discourage people from reaching out to victims, but for fuck's sake, would it kill you to say that you banned a guy for being a predator? Especially when none of his pages got deleted. And newbies regularly get 15-post-long threads for giving bad critique? What a great way to give legitimate child predators a means to cover up their actions. That's a heavy post. And yeah, I gotta say, I'm feeling about the same type of way. And indeed, they make some excellent points about why it would be covered up. Now, this buried ban was hard to find, but thanks to one of our anonymous sources, we were able to find it. Sad SaXiao, perma-banned unacceptable behaviors. There you go. Was his behavior unacceptable? Absolutely. I'd say even a little bit more than unacceptable. Deviant, even? Now, this buried ban log is interesting. First, I want you to take a look at that second section. soar.out@nd.fly, est hiding deep waters into the sun. Well, that is where a user's IRC IP goes. Smart users were told to create their own IPs in order to prevent doxing. And the second interesting thing is that last section. This last section, with the words not applicable, is normally where a link to the O5 Wiki, SCP's disciplinary forum, would normally go. Oddly, the man we absolutely know was pursuing children online and making attempts to get to them IRL doesn't have a disciplinary forum? Why did you not publicly shame the child predator, SCP admins? I'm seriously asking, why would you cover this up? Well, maybe if we get into the receipts, then we can learn a little bit more about why this was a big brain move. So here it appears that a user called Pills is calling SaXiao out for having pictures of a user who was possibly underage. So Pills says, frankly, I do not believe you. And Sue says, what benefit would I receive from having her pictures for myself? Pills says, you've clearly expressed interest in her. Sue defends himself saying, and I'll do it properly and take my time. You may call me old-fashioned. I was born and raised with traditional values, to know her as a person, and to capture the beauty of her soul, rather than the lust of the flesh. Yeah, just a traditional guy. It's all traditional. Some traditional skin crawling, that's what this is. And here we can see them attempting to rizz up what appears to be a recurring character in these leaks, Witness, or Little Misogynist. And in the weirdest possible way, too. Also, we can see the name of 2 allegedly underage victims who have had their names redacted. So SaXiao says, I'm also blank and blanks master. What else do you do? Admittedly, I'm not a fan of mpreg, but that can't be helped. So Witness says, well, I draw a lot and play video games. To state it broadly is kind of dull, but I do a lot of stuff each day. SuIAO says, I've seen your art for myself, and color me impressed. Is also an old boy at 25, hopes that he'll be easy to approach and talk to. Here we get some creepy asterisks right there. Witness says, thank you. And you will be. I'm good friends with a ton of people in the community. And then we jump to another DM. Catch a fly. You're pretty fly. Can I catch you? I'm not okay with that. Hey, you know what? Good for you. Telling the sex pest off. SaXiao says, I kid. Flies are kind of gross, though. Has accidentally ingested one before. You eat insects? You don't say. And here we can see some redacted conversation with what appears to be a member of staff. If I had to guess, this appears to be Yossi. Or Yossi, who cares? They're all ineffectual, aren't they? The other user is Pills. Yossi says, it isn't an isolated incident, this creepiness with younger people, and through his repeated creepiness, has made its way to another person who's decided to take official action. Pills says that's... Yossi, this is gathered storm. Adden will go forward regardless of your involvement. This will also most likely include redacted in some way, if not directly. Bill says, yeah, that of course is a different situation. Yossi says, a different situation with the same circumstances. Pills says in case it might be of use, he randomly asked someone in SCPD about their age. I didn't read the conversation though, so I don't really know the context. Yasi says, I saw that. Pills says, as for redacted, yeah, I don't know. Yasi, I believe that your PMs could help the situation, at least with banning sax and whatnot. If you still don't want to share them for whatever reason, then I understand. There's no obligation to, and I will respect your decision regardless. Now, at the very least, we can see that when this came to light, action seemed to be swift-moving. Pills conversing with SaXiao near the middle of December, and a member of staff contacting that same member in early January. Congrats, SCP. You brought your response time on sex pests down from 14 years to 2 weeks. Although, oddly, I feel no impulse to applaud that turnaround time. An unburied official ban log would later be released by Soulless Singularity as a member of the anti-harassment team a few days later, though their same cryptic and vague description would continue. User Sax or Sad Sack or Biao Yao has been permanently banned for an off-site harassment case. And I think it should be noted that off-site harassment, what a terribly vague term. That could be anything from being mean to somebody on Twitter to like exactly what this guy did. Let me tell you a little story, SCP. We had a member, he wrote a saga, he ingratiated himself into the community. He turned out to be a creep and sent some pictures of himself sitting on the toilet to God knows how many people, but I came into possession of them. And you know what I did? I put them on the video. The stories that he wrote, here with the pictures. And if he was going after kids, you better believe that would have gone right to the feds. So what possesses you to continue sitting on your hands?
What are you doing?
Me? Just hanging around.
Pills would later comment on Reddit about the intimate side of SCP culture in a Reddit comment. Anyone associated with Mainsite can tell you that the NSFW subculture of SCP is massive. They have several dedicated IRC channels which vary in privacy but are generally open for everyone over the age of 18. The regulars of these channels are the most highly esteemed authors and site members. Examples are Bright/Duckman, Cyantruese, SaXiao, and many more. Sadly, I never got a full list of names. Anyhow, staff permits, and in some cases, like Bright, indulges in that culture. If you pay closer attention to Mainsite, then you'll quickly know that mental issues run rampant, especially among the younger community members. Some folks like to take advantage of that and invite any newly turned 18-year-old girls into their domains. Witness got involved with an author named Cyantruese even before she turned 18, and Cyan was completely aware of that. As their relationship developed, he started to maltreat and harass the girl to the point that she started drinking heavily, and if memory serves, she contemplated hanging up. After Cyan tried to maltreat her intimately with a friend, she reported him to staff, and as it turns out, staff was very much in the know of Cyan's maltreating track record. Allegedly, one of the moderators was even a prior victim. This whole situation went back and forth, and eventually staff settled with banning both, temporarily, with a chance to appeal. Here, you can read up on him if you want. And Cyril is Cyan, and he's been banned for minor but long-term interpersonal issues with other users. You know, it is kind of amazing how they stuffed the word minor in there, but didn't mention it as the users that he was interacting with. Way to toe the line. And then there's some dead links. Cyantruese has since reached out to me to clarify the situation, but frankly, I don't entirely believe him. The picture he paints, though, is not pretty in any case. Related to this whole debacle, Kinch the Knife Blade has started making social media posts warning people about Cyan, but she got banned for it, for harassment, according to staff. About a week later, she got unbanned because apparently the entire anti-harassment team didn't know anything surrounding the situation with Cyantruese. Following that, they made the addendum to Cyan's disciplinary thread. Someone who has been staff until very recently is SaXiao. He was a member of the critique team and generally lurked in public IRC channels. Shortly after Cyantruese got thrown out, the aforementioned victim got hit on by that guy, and she told him to stop. He insisted and continued to harass her, so she went ahead and reported him to main site staff. As it then turned out, SCIAO had been known for harassing younger girls before, some of them underage, but no measures had been taken against him, for some reason. I myself was unfortunate enough to converse with him because he's been making moves on a friend of mine. For the purposes of privacy, I won't be posting the whole conversation. And then here we have a dead imager link, which, might have just died on accident, or it might have been ripped down on purpose by certain people. And given the history of the last few videos and what we've seen, I think you're capable of drawing your own conclusions here, as am I. So Pills continues saying, some months following that trouble, he tried to join into RPC, a rivaling creative writing wiki, but got promptly kicked out for his known history. Nonetheless, he shared some new information. And again, dead link. Now, we have just witnessed a lot laid out in this Reddit post. We see Cyan's name dropped and allegations against him. I will ask you to reserve your opinions for a later piece involving this individual, as they were, again, one of the people who broke all of this open, and they paint a broader picture that we will dive into later. We also see Pills admitting that SaXiao was a member of staff on the critique team. Oh wow. Another member of staff who had been known to be harassing people online, not getting kicked out the door right away. Who could have seen that one coming? Imagine my surprise. We also have a bunch of dead archive links, once again proving that Kiwi Farms is better at archiving this stuff than the people who are meant to protect their own community. SCP really just can't stop taking L's, can they? We also get a major bomb drop that Witness/Little Misogynist was also a victim in all of this, and appears to have suffered extensively from it. Again, I'm wondering, since Sax was fully doxxed and actually seeking out underage users, why did the SCP staff not hand evidence over to the local or federal authorities in Canada against him? For a group of people LARPing as shadow government vigilantes? Yeah, they sure suck at getting anything done in the real world. Don't want to hand over that evidence and have your precious wiki's name dragged through the mud? Fuck the victims. The wiki's what's important. Can you imagine a world without SCP? Oh, it would be like the sun had extinguished.
Do you really want to live in a world without Coca-Cola?
Which brings us to another serious topic of this video. While our pests in question are relatively little known, we've had an anonymous source pop up, and for the sake of keeping her anonymity safe, we'll just call them A. And yes, they were one of the many victims of Shax and another user that we have little info on called Salvage Bar. By her accounting, she joined the Foundation in prepubescence, and her story somewhat mirrors that of Insurgency Moon from the Gabriel Jade video. She had not had a great home life, socially isolated, looking for an escape, and SCP granted her just that. In order to enter SCP, she did lie about her age, LARPing as an 18-year-old. This would cause her to be able to access Site 12, where ERP and conversations of BDSM were abound. Naturally, as any isolated prepubescent, she sought validation from her peers and heroes, Drbright being among the cast of characters listed. In her own words, this validation became an addiction for her, and she fell into this group and was, to put it not so gently, passed around, engaging in ERP with users in an attempt to feel validated and useful. She went on to state that this had damaging ramifications on her mental health and her ability to feel alive outside of these circles, stating it sometimes felt hard to get out of bed with that sort of input absent. She, like so many others who were groomed in SCP, joined FetLife and eventually found herself on even darker corners of the internet. According to her, shacks and salvage bar were some of the largest offenders of targeting minors. In fact, going as far as wanting to seek them out IRL and impregnate them. That's right, both of them wanted to impregnate minors. What is it with degenerates and their impregnation fixation? Why must you spread your fetid seed? Now, the most damning information relevant to this situation is that her age was allegedly known by higher-ups and suspected by SCP staff. Yet, by all accounts, they did nothing to remove her from this situation. In fact, thanks to her, we now know that several big names were in Site-12 and were very aware of what was going on. Moderators of note on the Site-12 server include huge names from the anti-harassment team like Dexanote and Lily and Solus Singularity, who we've seen a few times before. To this very day, she says that her being active in this part of the community, which was accessible and known through the main site IRC, has adversely affected her psychology. Now, I have confirmed the identity of A, and I do consider her claims credible. I have seen over the course of the last 2 episodes, and this one, that staff drags their feet and hides the details of anything going on that makes them look bad. We can see this concept of mentally ill users being lured into cliques and corners, but what if I were to tell you that this addiction did not just extend to the BDSM and smut side of SCP? What if I told you that this addiction trend exists within just normal main site people, as they desperately scramble for their articles to be liked by big names? Cyantruese would release a PDF file from a user where they go on to say the following, and I do mean an actual PDF file this time. The community created an obsession for me. Even after the public humiliation, I obsessively checked it and still wanted to write it. I wrote material I found good, and many in the community found it good. I have one 100-plus article, and many that are around 50-plus, and I made friends. By about 2019, I began to drift away, but by that time, I had multiple mental breakdowns, either related to the site or contributed to by the site. I felt disliked and hated by everyone in the community. I was mildly successful, and I felt like most people, taking aside the xenomorph incident, respected me. But I was never going to be a DJKaktus figure, and yeah, maybe that's a good thing, honestly. I would always be small fry. It ate at me inside, which contributed to a bit of an inferiority complex. Many of my articles were small things. While well-liked, they had very little love from the wider community. I don't want to sound like I'm bitching, but it is how I felt. Nowadays, I realize it was pretty stupid, but back then I wanted people to respect me, to like me, to think of me as being an important member in the community. Mark Fisher, a socialist theorist who tragically ended his own life in January of 2017, stated the following that sticks with me today. It goes without saying that all mental illnesses are neurologically instantiated, but this says nothing about their causation. If it is true, for instance, that depression is constituted by low serotonin levels, what still needs to be explained is why particular individuals have low levels of serotonin. This requires a social and political explanation, and this is what happened with me. I internalized the depression within me, that the problem wasn't me, that the depression was entirely biological, with no social reason for existing. It definitely wasn't anything else. It definitely wasn't the SCP community. It isn't my own personal life, or my role within it, or lack thereof, or even the nature of our entire society, but it is strictly my own fault. And it ate away at me. I deleted my account 2 times. I thought I could get away by just shutting it all down, but yeah, I couldn't. It stuck its claws into me and wouldn't go away. I always came back. There was only one person who helped me to get away from that website, and he is my boyfriend, who I will not talk about here, but he is the most important person in my life, who helped me to get away from this horrible void that had developed within my own mind. I still struggle with depression, but it is better without dealing with a wider community where you feel like you're just another brick in the wall. End quote. This is a long document in its totality, but it seems to line up with the statement shared by some of our inside sources. SCP, for lack of a better explanation, seems to be preying on and attracting people who are not in the best headspace. And that is deeply concerning. Now, the same could be said for any social media site that exists today. Reddit and Tumblr specifically come to mind. That doesn't make it any better, however. It only highlights a true horror far scarier than any horror shown on the main SCP Wiki. The horror of parasocial relationships superseding self-care and mental health. I started this series thinking that the bad men, they were all gone. I thought it had all faded away, and maybe everything wrong with SCP was now dead and buried. But I now have many reasons to believe that this is no longer the case. I believe SCP staff actively suppress information to save face, and that behavior has not stopped. I believe the corruption runs deep, and there's no saving this monstrosity unto God that they've let fester. I'd go far as to say that the SCP Wiki itself is a psychological hazard that can hurt you in real life. I've seen now 3 times that you paragons of the community have failed to do the right thing. And thanks to more people coming forward, we have far more receipts and testimony than we expected. But even without people stepping forward, I suspected that there was corruption, and the pattern of grooming behavior had also been established. And I don't just mean the grooming of minors for pests like SaXiao or Bright, the grooming of people to think and act like staff, to cover up controversy for the sake of the SCP Wiki's survival. And it fucking sickens me! Look, I know I'm getting a little heated. I know this is sounding dramatic. I know this is starting to look like Charlie Day at the corkboard with all the red thread. Yeah, I know how it seems, which is why I encourage you to follow this series. We are diving into an even deeper rabbit hole that involves a name you've heard all too often in this series, and that is Cyantruese. And we will recount the events that led them down a dark path, and their unfortunate interactions with some of the biggest power users on SCP, and hopefully then you'll understand where I'm coming from. That episode is what the last 3 episodes have really been leading up to, the tragic tale of Cyantruese. It's not going to be fun, but do please join us in the next one, where we will discuss one of the most complicated victims / pests of the SCP Wiki, and how it ties into one of SCP's most prolific writers. It's gonna be a big one. The world contained within the SCP Wiki is home to many horrors. Some are as simple as just slasher-style monsters, and others are more esoteric. Among the horrors in the SCP Wiki are memetic hazards. Memetic hazards are quite simply hazards spread through images or information. It's an interesting concept. These hazards can compel people to forget things or cause them to act irrationally or even kill an individual outright. The SCP Wiki could not have created a better concept to compare themselves to. In the previous 3 episodes, we've highlighted a cast of characters who seem to have fallen a little too deep into the world of SCP, and they let it consume their lives. We've also slightly highlighted the negative health ramifications the site has had on several individuals' psychology, which brings us to our 2 subjects for today's video: the alleged pest/whistleblower known as Cyantreuse, and the self-proclaimed base god of SCP, DJKaktus. 2 people who have been with the site for a long time. One, banished for misdeeds and actions, possibly learned from the community at large. Another elevated to star power that makes their name nearly synonymous with the SCP Wiki. Before I begin the story proper, today's video will feature several public-facing people. I can't control what anyone does, but I don't co-sign any harassment or seeking out of individuals named in this video. Their sins are their own. Additionally, anything without solid receipts, you can just slap a big ol' allegedly over. Please weigh each piece of evidence with your own convictions and do not allow me to color your opinion. This is merely my opinion, based on, well, a pile of information that almost crushed me to death. But our story begins with the outing of Cyan as a sex pest. Originally posted by VDBN6 to Kiwi Farms on August 1st of 2019, this mega post includes such details as Cyan coming off as very dedicated to the Foundation, highlighting a number of posts and personal information that shows us a vision of what's clearly a man possessed. They sport an SCP tattoo, their car wrapped to appear like a vehicle belonging to the Foundation doctor or agent in the field, them having quit their job to focus on SCP small business endeavors. It's also noted that Cyan suffers from borderline personality disorder, though the poster comments that they appear to be getting help with that particular issue, which may have contributed to what seems to be a rather odd habit of public freakouts and poo-flinging in the SCP-IRC. Much like drbright, Cyan had a habit for writing questionable articles as well. But one that I would really like to focus on is SCP-2678. Not the new version, mind you. The old version, which was titled... I'm squinting at my paper here. The Vor Hole. Yeah, delightful. And who was the co-author on this piece, you might ask? Well, oh, look! It's the base god himself. Now, SCP-2678 is, for all intents and purposes, an anomalous hole that leads into the stomach of some vague entity, and it uses billboards to sort of entrance people to find it, and then they enter its maw and get digested. The digestion process is described as arousing. But what is the based god of the SCP Wiki doing writing this? Better question, why did the base god have it deleted? Now the obvious answer would be that it was written with Cyan, but it's also been alleged that the original documentation featured a heavily edited photo of the based god's bare butt. I've reviewed the image and yeah, I think I can see it. Allegedly, the documentation also included images of Cyan's anatomy in some capacity, though by their own account, Cyan removed that image themselves. Now, I don't want to get too bogged down focusing on that article alone, but do you remember Gabriel Jade, the pest who wrote The Plague Doctor with the Based God? Well, oddly, DJKaktus has no problem leaving this article up with Gabriel Jade's name attached to it. I wonder why. Is it maybe because the Plague Doctor is infinitely more popular than the butt crack hole? Or does this deletion signal something deeper? A little bit more on that later. Among Cyan's writings are many of which include adult themes of an intimate nature, including ones that seem to highlight an anomalous version of Stockholm Syndrome noted in children detained by the Foundation that reads as follows, quote, expressing friendliness towards personnel that could be described as abnormally affectionate or clingy behavior, a fixation on the notion of removing their anomalous effects, prioritized over their mental and physical health, expressing that they view the Foundation as more important than they are, treating personnel as equal representatives of the Foundation as a whole, rather than as specialists or individuals, and speaking to personnel with language that clearly conveys this generalization, making inappropriate advances or offers for personnel, especially of an intimate nature, and especially if actions are offered in exchange for treatment that would take place regardless, such as receiving food. That is really dark. You can go ahead and take a minute to process it if you'd like. I think I'll do the same. Now, I want you to lock this description into your head because we're going to be revisiting it, unfortunately. By all accounts, Cyan was one of the most dedicated to the SCP Wiki since drbright, and this clearly was taking a toll in brain meat by the pound. Now, Cyan, much like many other people we've discussed thus far, was a denizen of Site-12, an IRC channel connected to the main site IRC that held conversations of an adult nature. Cyan would also be involved in the FetLife side of SCP that we discussed in the Bright video. Now, why was Cyan banned from the community? Well, the official reasoning was listed in this 05 wiki thread. User Cyril Cyantreuse has been banned from the SCP Foundation wiki and chat following a long-term pattern of negative and abusive behavior across multiple SCP-related communities and sites toward multiple SCP members with varying levels of intensity. This pattern of behavior was determined by administrators and the disciplinary team to be wholly negative for the community and is the driving force behind this course of action. Cyril may appeal their ban once in Site-17 to an administrator other than myself. Additionally, Seer is welcome to appeal again 1 year from today. Yeah, just in case you really want back in. And there's an addendum here. Due to continuing online harassment of this user involving why they were banned, the anti-harassment team issued the following clarifications. The anti-harassment team concludes that Cyril has engaged in multiple maltreatment relationships in the past. Discussions that led to Cyril's banning did not concern allegations involving SA, but a host of other behaviors on and off-site. The anti-harassment team did not receive claims regarding child maltreatment perpetrated by Cyril. Any questions are to be forwarded to Solus. Yes, Solus, the one so quick to move on everything. Oddly, this is one of the first times that we've seen an addendum slapped onto a ban log for clarification. Now, the allegations against Cyan range from just being a bit of a sex pest all the way up to grooming accusations. And so far, I've not seen many substantial allegations against Cyantruese that stand out, though I will admit that I might have missed something in my research. Even without evidence, we've seen that Cyan has been involved in conversations with many pests that we've already covered in this series. Bright, Gabriel Jade, and Eskobar all have had Discord conversations with Cyan. And we know for a fact that all three of those people were definitely asking to get kicked in the chest.
Oh yeah! Look at you! You was popping all that good shit a second ago, then you got kicked in your chest!
During their ban, Cyan would try to get ahead of the controversy, and he would post this Tumblr blog about their poor behavior among SCP members. Here's the deal. This blog is a museum of cringe. And rather than deleting it, I'm gonna leave it here as an example of what not to do / how not to act, etc. A lot of times I was really positive and it was genuine. That's fine, but A lot of times I was really negative and it was also genuine. That's not fine. Negativity's always a two-way street. Doesn't matter who starts it. The point is that it's really important to control how much of yourself and your views you show to a group of people or a community. And I failed to do that. It's really important to separate how people see you from who you are. And I also failed to do that. It's really important to be able to comprehend criticism of behavior just as well as you can comprehend criticism of media, and I failed to do that. It's really important to remember that negativity rots your brain and your soul no matter what's quote-unquote right or wrong about whatever situation is negative, and I failed to remember that. You can pause the video and read the rest of that tripe at your leisure, but some of these things will be addressed a bit later on. Anyway, Kiwi farmers were quick to believe that this was a deflection, and that there was a darker truth in a closet somewhere, and I don't really bemoan them that. But at the time of this blog posting, there was no concrete evidence, outside of a tweet made by SCP author Kinch the Knifeblade, who we've also seen a few times before. Kinch is responding to this tweet, which says, "Hey, friendly reminder that sexy containment procedures /Cyantruese /Agent Trouse is an active maltreater who uses the SCP community as a hunting ground. Please don't support his weird SCP merch, badges, and shit. Don't ever let him forget what he is." And then Kinch says, "Please spread this." He specifically preys on his new, younger fans who don't know what he is. Don't let him do this, please. We also saw in the previous video that Pills, an SCP user, stated that Cyan had been involved in romantic relationships with minors, stating Witness, someone we've seen many times in this series, was groomed by Cyan. But again, we have no screenshots for this. It should also be noted that Witness and Cyan were both in the same Kiwi Farms thread without any sort of visible hostility, and I have seen no statement from Witness on this topic. Later on in this evolving case, none other than Cyantruese would show up on the Kiwi Farms to lay bare many claims that we've already addressed. The drbright and many other staff on the wiki were engaged in the same adult interest circles as Cyan. Not a single person in power, aside from a few outstanding individuals, would not be named as partaking in the Site-12 adult shenanigans that had become all too common. But at the front of these allegations were the ones against drbright, which we've already covered in the first video. In a SoundCloud file called Intro on Abuse, published by Cyantruese, they would go into detail about how this culture had affected them and the dark path that they were descending on. In the same upload, they would cover the idea that they were well liked by the community, and told by high-ranking members that they were only liked because of the smut that they wrote on the official wiki. This allegation would be followed by claiming, as they transitioned from a woman to non-binary and finally to a man, staff seemed to sour on them, as a smutty girl was more attractive to them than a smutty white man. That is paraphrase, of course. Cyan would push forward the allegation that they were groomed to bring other young people into the community and to be overtly sexual. Now, these are some damning accusations, but the parallel between their behavior and the most well-known pest drbright seems to corroborate that. I've read through thousands of Cyan's words through blogs, Site-12, 17, 19, logs, their works on the SCP Wiki, and the general tone is in line with what I would expect from someone who learned from bright and bright-adjacent people. Again, it cannot be understated that Cyan has so many logs between them and other power users and creeps, of which there's significant overlap, that in the end there are only two reasonable conclusions. Cyan was the center of grooming from several high-up users, or they were the ringleader. Considering Bright far outlived Cyan, I do truly believe that it is the former. Which brings us back to the vicious dopamine cycle that I alluded to in the previous video. That cycle being an addiction to SCP. And I do believe, much like our anonymous source, any actions taken by Cyan were learned behavior, them having joined the site around 15 or 16 and getting embroiled in the culture that was still pervasive at the time. It should be also mentioned that Cyan claimed to have been the victim of SA at one point, and it's almost certain that this had an effect on their relation to adult concepts and themes. While we have yet to take this nuanced look at a possible pest, I feel like these are all sort of mitigating factors. That doesn't mean I co-sign anything that they might have done, however. This does not excuse any creep behavior or actions they might have taken. If they groomed someone, I definitely condemn that. If they were a pest or perverse in an aggressive or unwanted fashion, yes, of course, I condemn that as well. If they exposed children, even unknowingly, to things that they were not old enough to see, I condemn the living fuck out of that. I'm not gonna shield Cyan if they did something wrong. I'm merely outlining all the information I've collected and used it to help me contextualize how we get to where we currently are. That being said, the one thing that I can praise Cyan for is the fact that they came forward to the Kiwi Farms, and they came with gifts. Every single other creep we've discussed so far, in fact, had receipts with Cyan, and Cyan was more than happy to drop these receipts as new allegations and questions about other possible pests burst into the blinding light of day, which can tell us only one thing. Much as Insurgency Moon seemed to be at the center of several pests, Cyan too seemed to be very central in the group of pests that we've covered so far. And again, this is suspect, and it should be interpreted by you, the listener, in your own opinion. But let us not forget that when Eskobar and Gabriel Jade were trying to get Cyan to join a gruesome ERP server with a 16-year-old as the main target, Cyan was hesitant to join, and found it somewhat gross, based on their own logs. I believe this shows at least a tiny sliver of humanity. Now, I'm sure you've been asking, as I explain this Cyan individual, what does any of this have to do with DJKaktus? Okay, so Kaktus wrote 2 articles that have one confirmed degenerate and one alleged degenerate. Who cares? The man's written 300 articles on the wiki, and he collaborates fairly often. Statistics alone dictate that DJKaktus would, at some point, have written with a few degenerates, correct? And you would be right in assuming that it's more than a likely statistical probability given the, well, absolute state of SCP. But why would he remove his collab with Cyan and not his collab with the actual confirmed groomer with over 160 pages of ERP smut involving an actual 16-year-old? Could it be because Cyan actually accused DJKaktus of being emotionally abusive? In this leaked email, we can see Cyan, after the ban, contacting a member of site staff by the name of Taylor Itkin, who some say is also a questionable individual. The email reads as follows. Taylor, I find it indescribably distasteful that staff continue to make excuses for DJKaktus despite his continued shitty behavior, which is now widely criticized by large chunks of the satellite community. I find it disgusting that I was given no chance to defend myself against his quote-unquote complaints. What happened between us a few years ago was that I got mad at him for ghosting me. He kept talking to a bunch of other people despite his claim that he was just busy. For me, he went from constant flirting and sexting and romantic insinuations to a immediate, complete lack of contact for months. So, I was upset, as a person gets when someone leads them on intimately and romantically and then completely ignores them, all while talking to other people just the same. It's gaslighting, It's manipulation. It's abuse. Staff's favorite word. I'll have staff know that in summer 2016, DJKaktus brought me in his apartment, checked my ID to make sure that I was over 18 so he could legally fuck me, and then he offered me booze. When I was, in my opinion, noticeably uncomfortable and said I was fine, he said, "You sure?" To which I had to say, yes, I'm definitely sure. I do not want to drink, and I've not had alcohol in a setting like that, and I don't want this to be my first time. If I recall correctly, he then said to let him know if I changed my mind. And then I definitely recall that he wanted to go ahead and bang it out instead of sitting on the couch together and talking. What kind of picture does that paint? An ugly one. I don't know.
Come on, Jez, this isn't a love story, it's a fuck story.
I didn't even realize until 2019, but that night taught me what's normal in SCP hookup culture. That night taught me that I was never going to be worth anything but intimacy, or some semblance thereof, to the inner circle, and once I became my true self, I was punished for transitioning to something because, those men didn't want to bang me anymore. Here's the log that I would have given staff if I were given literally any chance at all against any of the people who reported me. In this paste bin, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it has a conversation between Cyan and DJKaktus going back and forth on whether Kaktus ghosting Cyan was a case of emotional maltreatment or manipulation or not. Continuing through the email, everyone knows my thoughts on the other people at this point. Kaktus was the one that I failed to guess. You may notice that he said he's mad at me personally, and then by the end he changed it to, "It's just for Solus's sake." Yes, just like a chameleon changes his stripes or whatever. Now, in this letter, we got a lot dumped on us. We didn't even read the whole thing, but there's a lot of Cyan venting about their unwell mental state. Cyan feeling gaslit by the community, and DJKaktus, more specifically, his struggle with finding acceptance after their transition. Now, to put it lightly, Cyan does have a history of acting a bit hard-headed. There are several O5 wiki threads of them butting heads with mods and staff over issues perceived or otherwise. But we know for a fact that DJKaktus did hook up with Cyan and offered them alcohol when they were only 18, which is a misdemeanor crime. How do we know this most likely happened? Well, here's a leak from IRC logs involving confirmation of the event stated in the email. No alcohol's mentioned, but the rest of the story does line up. Cyantruese says to DJKaktus, "I don't know, you answer it. You're the one who checked my driver's license." DJKaktus said, "Last thing I needed was the cops breaking down my door." Cyantruese, "You carded me, even." DJKaktus, "I mean, yeah, dude. The last thing I need is to bang a child. You gotta double check that shit." Yes, it's good to have standards, isn't it? Then this comment comes a little bit later, indicating at least some level of conjugation occurred between Cyan and DJKaktus. DJKaktus said to Cyantruese, "You weren't saying nothing when I was wrist deep in you, you human puppet." Ugh, what a scummy thing to say to someone, by the way. I felt gross even reading that. And considering some of the other things we've read on this channel, it is a feat. Well, at least he's not a repeat offender of offering people under 21 alcohol, right? Oh, wait. So the square brackets here do indicate that this is from the good old Kiwi Farms and specifically user TOS, but DJKaktus says to Lady Katie, "I understand. You can come live at my home. Just a phone call away, girl. You know how I do." Oh, how do you do? I forgot to mention alcohol. You'd have to get used to that, too." And Lady Katie was 20 at the time of this convo, adds TOS.
DJKaktus says to Spooky Bee, "The support hotline is me, in a Chevy Suburban, just showing up with beer. Whoa, I pretty much go as long as you like, TBH. Well, Lady Katie, if you ever need anything..." And then he gives out his cell phone number here, and I'm not going to share it because it could be used against me in a court of law. And these people are insane and have a bunch of legal funds now for themselves and their friends. "Direct line, girl. You got it. Premier stuff."
Oh, God. The cringe is killing me inside. You realize that, right? So yeah, well, isn't that all rather enlightening? Really seems like DJKaktus is going for that old trick known as plying people with alcohol. Not exactly the most clever trick in the book, but apparently effective. Hey, isn't that something that P. Diddy was recently accused of? But I digress. Now, these leaked logs from Site 12 look a lot like vindication for Cyan's statements to Taylor Itkin, don't they? At least in regards to DJKaktus being a bit of an SCP hookup artist and offering alcohol to people who shouldn't have it, which again, misdemeanor crime. I'll concede that it's possible that these leaked logs are faked or edited, but I did some cross-referencing, and I find these logs highly credible. But again, you'll need to draw your own conclusion. It's also possible that a lovesick and spiteful Cyan is merely trying to tear down a pillar of modern SCP with these statements, but what if I told you that there are people who can't stand DJKaktus, both inside and outside of the community? In fact, by many accounts I've heard and read, DJKaktus is allegedly a little bit of a gigantic narcissistic asshole. Would that surprise anybody here, considering what we've seen thus far? In another leak from Site 12, which again is the more adult side of SCP IRC discussion, we get this really weird flex.
"I'm surprised how often people let me crap on them just because I'm DJKaktus. Whoa, especially in Crit. I wonder if Cal feels like this. I mean, I've literally told people their ideas are garbage before, and they're like, 'Oh my god, thank you so much, DJKaktus.' Like, what the fuck? 2875 should not allow me this privilege. Yeah, but I've mostly just been a huge douche for months, yep. So hey, Cyantruese, it's most like I've intentionally been a dick because I'm just so far done with people's crap by now. I feel like that dick in high school who was totally shitty to people and just totally gets laid for it. Whoa. I mean, granted, I was that guy, totally for real, but still, I was really popular in high school.
We believe you. Stop now.
Ever the politician, Ben, my principal said at graduation. Whoa.
So, wow. Yeah, he seems great. like a perfectly well-adjusted individual, right? I'm sure that power doesn't go to his head, though. Oh no. It's nice to be the biggest person around. Like I've said before, it makes your viewpoint easy to enforce. Ugh. Well, that's not a great look. It's scary to imagine that this is before he had his own canon that the fandom referred to as the Cactus Verse. I can only pray that it didn't get worse after that, but let's not forget this other precious gem.
Don't be deceived. I'm definitely a dick, but I'm also the coolest person here, so I'm like that guy off Breakfast Club.
Yes, DJKaktus, you are totally Spicoli, the cool guy that shows up to detention. It's not Spicoli, it's John Bender. I don't know where I got Spicoli from. I'm getting off topic again. Now, it would be irresponsible to call DJKaktus a narcissist without first establishing what exactly a narcissist is. In order to be diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder, one must have 5 of the following traits: a grandiose sense of self-importance, a preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love, a belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high-status people or institutions, a need for excessive admiration, a sense of entitlement, interpersonally exploitative behavior, a lack of empathy, envy of others, or a belief that others are envious of him or her, and a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitudes. Maybe you're recognizing a few of these already. We could definitely check off interpersonally exploitative behavior because I'm going to go ahead and say that I believe Cyan's account of events in the letter to Taylor Itkin. And we can also go ahead and check off a demonstration of arrogant and haughty behaviors or attitude based on their
being the biggest guy, crapping on other people's articles
comments. And we can also chalk that up to a grandiose sense of self-importance. Wow. Only a few leaks in and we're speed running a narcissism diagnosis. 3 out of 9. This general pettiness and elitism would lead to Kaktus no longer being able to do his semi-popular podcast called The Kaktus Cast for the following cited reason.
I have trouble doing Kaktus Cast episodes anymore, because I'm running out of people I don't have a grudge against for spotting me sometime in the past.
One of the funnier points of contention that would cause staff to sour on Kaktus in a major way would be his insistence that he be allowed to rewrite SCP-006, The Fountain of Youth, as it had been left in its original state for roughly 10 years. Also included in his desires was a rewrite for SCP-008, Zombie Plague.
What I really desire is to rewrite the Fountain of Youth. That's my dream.
Not a Seagull says, you mean SCP-006? And then Jarvis comes in, and he's like, Sir, the Fountain of Youth is over here. It has this rating. And M. Lister says, DJKaktus, it's literally in the multi-hundreds.
DJKaktus says, allowing this article to go unrewritten would be a mistake. It's a very bad SCP.
It should be noted that a run-of-the-mill SCP of average quality typically runs between 25 to 100 upvotes. 252 upvotes is relatively respectable. Not only that, but SCP-006 is a cornerstone of many SCP canons, including the Ouroboros cycle, written by DJKaktus. Is it possibly intentional that he wants to attach himself to these pop culture icons within the SCP Wiki? You decide! This will be kicked over to the rewrite team, and we can see DJKaktus have a little bit of a tantrum when they declined him the privilege of rewriting SCP-008 Zombie Plague. Clerg says, now your next goal. Rewrite Bleep's favorite SCP-008. DJKaktus says,
Clerg, I paved the way for that to happen, and the staff decided, nah, they'd rather that it be bad. Sorry, my mistake. They'd rather maintain the original author's work, even though the original author hasn't been around in over a decade. And the guy who moved that page from edit this to Wikidot straight up said that he doesn't care what happened to it. More important to maintain that shit heap.
Lily says, Kaktus, stop being passive-aggressive. It's always been the rules, and we're keeping it that way. DJKaktus,
Lily, I wasn't aware that I wasn't allowed to be frustrated at the way staff has decided to handle this. Whoa.
Here we can see the typical narcissist response of trying to establish authority in the face of adversity. We can also go ahead and check off sense of entitlement for those narcissistic traits now. As a side note, I legitimately would like to see DJKaktus rewrite the famous Fountain of Youth. DJKaktus' name is basically synonymous with SCP for a reason. When he writes something good, it's legitimately great. When he writes cringe, yeah, it is exceptionally cringe. So, yeah. I am down for a DJKaktus rewrite of SCP-008, even if it is complete cringe. Another fun little factoid about the base god of SCP is that he used to be staff and an admin on the SCP Wiki. During the Pride Month incident of 2018, a flood of trolls would storm in and start flinging accusations and criticism en masse. DJKaktus, by his own admission, did not handle the situation well, and was subsequently removed from staff on the SCP Wiki and lost his mod status on the SCP subreddit. Though DJKaktus would state that they stepped down willingly, this event would cause the mods to comment and express some very anti-Kaktus sentiments, with ARD being cited as saying, "But we didn't have the balls to ban him, so we put this whole 'you're not welcome here' thing," and it still boiled down to, "We don't want you here, but we don't want to ban you." The general tone of this conversation would be many agreeing that DJKaktus, at the very least, was not fit to be staff, and at worst, probably should have been banned a long time ago, just based on his personality. And it would appear that the base god, well, he took this personally.
"I'm officially stepping down as SCP Town Hall Liaison. Extensive logs leaked to me show that even after my good faith attempts to mitigate the damage done by staff to their own reputation, they're still gleefully mocking me and others behind closed doors. If I'm gonna get fucked for trying to help out around here, I'm not interested in holding your hat while I do it. It's kinda wild. The G is being censored for saying the same kind of shit about users that is said in staff chat all the time, even now. Really does make you wonder."
In a way, I can sort of see where he's coming from. If you're the most popular person on a site, then you'd expect the admiration that people give you to your face behind your back as well. And when you find out that's not the case, I can sort of see the point he's trying to make. If SCP staff had any gumption whatsoever, they would stick to their guns and ban him. But they want to do this half in, half out, will they, won't they, because he's too big to actually ban. And it's the same sort of wiffle waffling that we've seen in every freaking SCP video so far. So while I don't agree with DJKaktus 100%, I'm also not trying to buddy up to the staff too much. You guys are all in the wrong. How about that? Now, you might be wondering yourself, well, why was Kaktus not banned? In order to understand that, we have to go way back a bit to the early days of SCP. Fishmonger was a well-liked author in his time, and following his ban, he tore all of his articles off the wiki, leaving a relatively decent-sized hole in the existing canon. DJKaktus's footprint is much larger, and in the same conversation that agitated the base god so greatly, Fishmonger was brought up. There seemed to be a legitimate fear of the same maneuver being done if Kaktus was banned, which highlights something interesting. Apparently, if you're a popular enough author, you can get away with quite a lot. We saw this very same thing happen with Bright and Gabriel Jade. Speaking of Gabriel Jade, do you know who had a cute little in-joke with Gabriel Jade about his victim Insurgency Moon? Why, it was none other than the base god himself. Gabriel Jade said, "Please write Cack Me Daddy with me at some point down the line, if you have an ounce of goodness in your soul." And then DJKaktus says, "You little minx." And please note the term little minx here. This was a term used frequently by Gabriel Jade in his ERP server with Insurgency Moon. In an odd little coincidence, DJKaktus would also write an article featuring a character named after Insurgency Moon and referred to her as, quote, "an eldritch little minx." Insurgency Moon was 17 at the time of its writing, by the way. I wonder if it's possible that DJKaktus was on that server. Is it possible that he partook in that roleplay? We won't ever really know, truthfully, due to the names of the posters not being in the leaked Google Doc, but we do have a statement from Insurgency Moon on Twitter of some interest in relation to this. Major trigger warning. This is difficult, but I need to speak about it. Don't mention SCP Foundation to me unsolicited again. In fact, you should stay away from that site because my life was endangered by the abusive creeps on their staff, and it messed me up bad. The SCP staff, lots of adult men pretending wokeness to lure in younger people. 16 to 18 me was groomed by a circle of the most prominent writers, including of 049 and 1730. I had gruesome adult videos sent to me, was stalked and told to have a relationship with my stalker by his friend on staff. When evidence leaked, Google, because it's too sick to put here, they raised the age limit. Never made an honest statement and never banned them all. In fact, the famous writer who ran that PDF file circle is still blaming me for them getting into trouble. There are better horror fandoms. Don't fucking promote the SCP Foundation Wiki when misogynists still infest their staff and PDF files wrote many of your favorite SCPs. Now stop asking me. I'm done with them and now I'm trying to heal. That is probably one of the heaviest things that we've read. Interestingly, she mentions the author of SCP-049, which could be Gabriel Jade, or it could be DJKaktus. Less ambiguous, though, is the mention of SCP-1730, also known as What Happened to Site-13, and that was written by none other than DJKaktus. An interesting, though admittedly uncorroborated allegation, don't you think? But there is something slightly more fascinating here. Gabriel and Eskobar were banned in May, and this tweet was released in July. And she claims the biggest of the perpetrators was never mentioned. Quote, who is a famous author and leader of the PDF file circle was never banned. Now, she's likely referencing drbright. That would be the most likely conclusion, I suppose, but the specific call-out of SCP-1730 could hint that DJKaktus is the person in question. This is merely an allegation through a bit of my own conjecture. DJKaktus allegedly played down the abuse that Insurgency Moon suffered, and we know that he would have reason to be upset about it, as he seems to have had several conversations with Gabriel Jade. Just for the playing down of events around Insurgency Moon, I'm gonna chalk that up to lack of empathy. Congratulations! We've hit the threshold for a clinical diagnosis of narcissistic personality disorder. We did it, everyone! I mean, granted, we can't properly diagnose something like that over the internet, but it is a fun little framing device that we use for this section of the video. Don't you think? Leave me a comment about it. Thanks so much. Another possibly comical incident allegedly involving DJKaktus involves the former leader of the rival RPC wiki, CF Operator. The story allegedly goes something like this. DJKaktus cozied up to the head admin of RPC. This cozying up would lead to a degree of trust between CFO and Kaktus until CFO lost it all in an incident which we'll cover in another episode. But this is the text exchange between the two. Kaktus says, I'm not your dad. I'm just a friend with friendly advice. Either take it or don't. I'm not your enemy. CF Operator says, I have no idea what you're talking about. Nor do I care because you do not have the official capacity to suggest action. You're not staff, you're just a member of SCP. If there are incidents like this in the future, my staff and I will only respond to official SCP staff. Your ego's getting in the way of your status. Zuck's not the site. Gloop's not the site. I am the site. It sounds like Kaktus isn't the only one with a bit of ego there, right? The paragraph that you just wrote went unread. I care so little about what you have to say, it's not even funny. Zuck will never contact you again.
Listen, don't you ever honk to me or my son again.
You have insulted our community and lied to my face. Why are you being wrong on purpose? Kaktus says, it's alright to be angry, CFO. I understand, but I'm just trying to look out for you. CFO said, that's a lie, and you know it. Come on, can't we just agree that neither of us wants the best for the other? This is quite literally what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable force. So, following all of this, an anonymous user of the X board of 4chan would post this exact same screenshot. And this is where things get a little screwy. I can't actually show the posts because, yeah, they contain like every single no-no word on the internet. I will make those screenshots available upon request, however. What I can show you is how people figured out that this anonymous user was likely DJKaktus. We have an original screenshot from DJKaktus in the RPC Discord, and a screenshot found on an X thread. These two have the same header. The one on the left shows him clearly logged in. He originally sent it as proof of his identity on the RPC Discord. The screenshot on the right is, of course, information that only CFO or DJKaktus could have known or taken a screenshot of, because it's a conversation between these two. The two phones have the same bottom bar. There's a Discord bar for messaging CFO, which narrows down that 50-50 a little bit. There's also the same file naming system, and both are JPEGs. And the conclusion to all of this is, yeah, these screenshots likely come from the same person, DJKaktus. Indeed, some internet sleuths went through the trouble of comparing a screenshot sent to RPC to confirm DJKaktus' identity with that of the leaked DM. And as you can see, the top of the phone has all the same icons, and it's very unlikely that another user would have these exact same icons, so we can more or less safely say that, yeah, it came from the base god's phone. But that's all we know for sure. If nothing else, we can say that DJKaktus passed this along to someone else and possibly had them do the posting in question, though I find his comment about the situation in IRC to be somewhat telling. DJKaktus:
"This is the seed of his calamity. This dude was so shitty to me once, so I ruined his life. This plus a little pointed sedition on the old 4chan, and bada bing bada boom. Get fucked, CFO."
Yeah, in before not your personal army. Even more interesting would be this other conversation from an SCP IRC channel. DJKaktus:
"There was a thread going on in X about RPC. It was super easy to make it a thread about CFO. Plus, I've had a few accounts sitting in the RPC Discord before it went under, spreading seditious ideologies. Hell, I've got accounts on their side in case I ever needed to use them."
Weird Name butts in here and he's like, "Oh, that's seditious as fuck." And DJKaktus says,
"Nah, you asked them to be nice and they call you soy."
Orion says, "Spreading division through Discord, what a romantic guy." Cactus says,
"So, I just started talking about how CFO was in league with all those cuck SJW DJKaktus, and it was all downhill from there for him. I like to keep a handful of accounts around at all times, in case a false flag needs to get started."
So if this video does go down, I want you guys to know there's no doubt in any of our minds as to what happened here. Cactus continues,
"So, don't forget, you lot. Don't do something that I won't ever let go, and then come back months later to send a horde of shitters clawing at your door."
Does anyone else find it a little weird, unsettling, uncouth even, that he's out here playing people chess, quite publicly announcing his intention, bragging about it even? It's pretty sus, that's what I'll say. And yes, wow, what a coincidence that DJKaktus knows the exact thread in question. How did he find it? How does he know about it? Personally, I don't have enough neurons to put this puzzle together, but surely someone does. I'm gonna put this one under preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. That's right, we still got the chart, and we're at 6 out of 9 so far. Nice. If he did create the 4chan thread and was LARPing as an anti-SJW, he definitely should be banned. He literally used every 4chan word under the sun. I thought SCP cared about the LGBT and POC communities, even if he just passed the DM off to someone with a vested interest in dethroning CFO because of a perceived slight against himself. Yeah, that's just a little bit over the top, you think? Some might even say sociopathic? Some might say that, but not me though. Lying in wait to sow the seeds of chaos because he upset you at some point. I mean, honestly, dude, how do you even have the emotional bandwidth to be running 24-hour ops? It doesn't seem very base to me. So, what do you think happens when someone's about to surpass our little base god? Well, good news. You don't have to guess. Dr. Blackbox says, tell DJKaktus you don't have to log as SCP anymore, by the way. Jarvis says, Dr. Blackbox sent. Dave says, oh, that's gonna get under his skin. You know what it does to someone when you tell them that theirs isn't the longest anymore. Dave is Eskobar, by the way. And it seems pretty weird how him and Cactus seem to know each other on a fairly close basis. Saradomi Share says, Jeezums, his egotistical highness will not take this well, that's for sure. And then DJKaktus bursts in to the IRC and says, Sarah, that's sort of a shitty thing to call someone. Besides, I don't care about having the longest anything. Length doesn't equal quality. Just because it's long doesn't mean it's good. You dumb fucks are the ones who make that a big deal, not me. But yeah, Sarah, here I thought we were cool. His egotistical highness. That's a pretty shitty thing to call someone. Glad to know better, TBH. So yeah, good, great. Seems to me like he had a perfectly normal adult reaction to that. There's nothing passive-aggressive going on here. He's not burning bridges with military-grade napalm. Maybe he was just having a bad day, right? Surely this isn't a trend or something. Oh, wait. Othello says to Conwell, yeah, and just 4 votes. It'll be the second highest skip this month. More than Cactus's 911 thing, surprisingly. Then DJKaktus says, probably not really necessary to keep saying that. It may come as a surprise, but plenty of people have written articles higher rated than me. Othello says, also, I know that people have written higher rated articles than you, DJKaktus. It's just a shock to me if I ever do it. DJKaktus, cool. Still probably not something I'd do if the other person's in the room. It's gotta be really difficult to be Cactus, you know? Just to be on the defensive all the fucking time. Like, this guy, it seems like he looks up to you. And he's like, wow, I did something that's nearly equivalent to something that someone I admire made once. And your response to it is to get all pissy about it? You can't just be like, hey, that's cool, dude, keep going, you know? I can't understand how somebody lives their entire life this way. Othello apologizes to Cactus, saying, well, I'm sorry, I just see you as a good writer, like I said. And I get a little full of myself sometimes, so I'll stop. And Cactus says, good! Pixel Scum says, honestly, Cactus, I think a lot of folks just kind of see you as a high watermark or whatever, Cactus.
I mean, that's fine. But saying, wow, can you believe this thing I wrote is higher than the thing that X wrote? Wow. Yeah, that's frankly pretty shitty. I have a hard time putting myself in the mindset where that would be kosher.
Well, it seems like a situation where we're both having trouble imagining ourselves in each other's shoes. So yeah, nothing to see here, folks. Move along. The man had 2 bad days. The Joker said, it only takes 1 bad day to create a villain. Frankly, we're lucky DJKaktus didn't become a supervillain. He's dealing with people doing better than him very well. At least he's not a massive hypocrite or something. Oh, wait. DJKaktus, commands Jarvis to list all his pages. The Raven, 18K upvotes. Goddamn, dude. DJKaktus.
I just picked up a bunch because of the 3333 rewrite. It doesn't mean that much. Though, what it does mean...
And then he pings for Dr. Gears, and Jarvis says, oh yeah, he's got this many. DJKaktus says,
that we are in the home stretch.
And then a little while later, after a few more upvotes, here he comes, pinging again. Dr. Gears has this, DJKaktus has this. Oh my god, you have more of the number now! Isn't that amazing? DJKaktus says,
sorry, I had to see it for myself. Whoa!
And then he pings ARD and says,
it's over.
And he runs the command again. Taylor iOS Takin, whom you might remember, gives DJKaktus a question mark. And then Jarvis starts doing his thing again. Wow, the number's even bigger than it was before. Look how happy our little guy is about surpassing Dr. Gears, the former highest upvote holder. Look at all those good boy points. Doing a big boy brag to his friend ARD. Hey, buddy, based on your other statements, more upvotes doesn't mean better. And that's a very valid opinion. Unless you want to walk back your 2 previous outbursts and admit that you're somewhat of a hypocrite. I'm just gonna go ahead and check off a belief that he or she is special and unique and can only be understood by or should associate with other special or high status people or institutions on this imaginary narcissism test that you've been taking unbeknownst to yourself. And you know what? Actually, I'm also gonna check off envy of others or a belief that others are envious of him or her. And actually, wait one more minute, because hold on, yeah. I am gonna check off an excessive need for admiration, and I think we matched all of those. Wanting to be at the top hits the believing he is special, and also his hypocrisy with the rules for thee but not for me crap. It can also be said that there was a little bit of envy displayed there, and the habitual patting yourself on the head. Yeah, that's all 3, folks, okay? Let's go. This is what I've been waiting for. Elijah, put up a big flashing 9 out of 9 with some fireworks.
Woo! Yeah, baby! That's what I've been waiting for. That's what it's all about. Woo!
Now, a lot of these leaks were collated by a Kiwi Farms user by the name of TOS. Yes. Among a few other things, without actual conversations, they allege to have seen the following. DJKaktus conspiring with Roget over infiltrating the RPC, a section describing what DJKaktus would do with $1 billion that includes kidnapping children into a blimp, DJKaktus bragging about leveraging his name for some boom boom, 31 quotes of DJKaktus worshipping himself and his upvotes, DJKaktus posturing and attention whoring by leaving a bitch sewer slide note in Site 19. His fragile world apparently collapsed when he slammed his boss's hand in a door and thought he was gonna get fired. Yeah, I guess the doorknob got the last laugh there, eh, fella? And honestly, I find these claims credible, just from what I've seen. I mean, I don't know about the blimp one, really. It's a little out there and hyper-specific. I'm not gonna rule it out completely. I'm just saying, it's definitely stretching my suspension of disbelief, okay? I want to briefly return to the idea that staff are afraid to do anything against DJKaktus, and we saw ARD pretty much admit that earlier. But there's one other really interesting sign that DJKaktus definitely is getting better treatment than others. And what's this? Oh, a cease and desist letter. Hello, DJKaktus. We're sending you an official cease and desist for your actions in the past few months involving numerous non-staff and staff community members.
The following actions you've engaged in are forbidden under the harassment policy: deliberate intimidation, publication of private communication for the express purpose of humiliating, shaming, or harming another user, and encouraging any of the above behavior. To be clear, this is independent of your actions against specific staff members in positions of authority or leaking staff spaces. Rather, this is about your conduct in specific instances of those which are against our rules. Attempting to hold staff accountable for their actions is perfectly within the rules, but only in a manner that does not cause lasting physical or psychological harm. Public examples of the above violations are as follows. Deliberate intimidation. The first example coming from the base god's Twitter, where he says, "First leak, Edna Granbo was the first person to alert staff chat that I posted this. Afternoon, Ed. Hope you're doing well. More to follow." And follow it surely does. He says, "At Stoner, you realize that is a remarkably suspicious thing to say. Oh, this person can't possibly have an alt account. He would have let me. Definitely not his alt account now. I mean, Stoner, really, you gotta be able to see this for what it is, my guy. We might not have thought you were some rando from Reddit or Kiwi Farms or whoever, but saying, 'No, guys, seriously, trust me, I know this dude, he wouldn't have an alt account,' more or less spells it out. It was a valiant effort, though. Here's the thing you missed, though. When you go out and make such a big production about it, people reasonably begin to suspect you. All you would have had to do is nothing. Just stay low-key and chill, and nobody would have said or done anything. But just giving it away, you have to know that somebody would pick up on that." There are also some examples of publication of private communication for the express purpose of humiliating, etc., etc. DJKaktus says, "Just another casual reminder that fellow staff harasser and admin privileges abuser Fade Tavart when called out for what was being said behind closed doors about the liaisons and these staff accountability processes proceeded to ghost me in DMs."
Huh. People ghosting you? Well, maybe now you know how Cyan felt. Here we have DJKaktus saying, "Hey, at Stormfallen,
If you think a whistleblower posting staff logs is a more important issue to address than the fact that an admin and a mod maltreated another member of staff, then you're just as bad as the predators you're protecting."
I mean, he is not wrong here. SCP has been proven to be essentially infested with people who are doing untoward things. It's good that he pointed it out. There's also an example of encouraging any of the above behaviors. DJKaktus says,
"With the staff recap, see accountability, team creation vote ongoing, let's remember some of the hottest takes made by our beloved staffers and remind them to do us all a favor and keep their word if this doesn't go the way they'd prefer."
Continuing with the cease and desist, the above list is not exhaustive, but it is almost all of what we are able to release as examples, as these behaviors took place publicly. The anti-harassment team does not believe you're acting in bad faith, and that you ultimately want to help the community. However, a number of your actions have been borderline or rarely explicit harassment, and have been enhanced by your notable Twitter following. You've also mentioned in the past that you're explicitly attempting to humiliate specific individuals, as seen here.
DJKaktus says, "I don't have any power to remove maltreaters from staff, however, so the best option I have left is humiliation. I don't actually know if they can be humiliated, but any reasonable person should be, so that's the way we're gonna go with it till something changes."
Westbot says again, "Restorative justice for me, but not for thee." Lotto says, "Every week is like a Kinder surprise. I find a new staff I respected very much and then realize that they don't deserve that respect. Yeah, I'm sort of in the same boat with you, Icolotl. DJKaktus says,
I literally will not stop talking about this until Dexanote and Procyon specifically are disciplined in a way that isn't just a slap on the hand. Multi-month censure has to be the absolute bare minimum. If the rest of you staffers would prefer I shut up, then keep working to make this happen, and I'll shut up when it does.
Which means never. This behavior cannot be tolerated by anyone in our community, prominent or not, and thus we're forced to take action. You're still free to criticize staff, specific individuals in staff, and specific individuals in the community, but you must not violate our anti-harassment policy while doing so. Yeah, that anti-harassment policy is ironclad! Additionally, these restrictions apply to all site members, so if you believe someone else has or is violating anti-harassment policy on the site, you're free to submit a report to the anti-harassment team, and we will investigate the issue. Ah, yes, of course, we've investigated this in-house and decided that we did nothing wrong. Thank you. For objectivity purposes, Dexanote's not been involved in your case. If you have any questions, feel free to follow up with us, the anti-harassment team. Bunch of LARPers is what you are. This isn't anything serious. Where's your legal letterhead? I'm starting to lose it. This is a long video, dude. This is a cease and desist letter from SCP Anti-Harassment Team, and yeah, I've never ever heard of anyone else getting one of these in my entire time researching all of the controversies of SCP. The Twitter thread about Cyan got Kinch the Knife Blade banned, but it was later appealed successfully. Why is it that DJKaktus just gets this cute little warning message? I'm forced to wonder what's wrong with both sides here. DJKaktus, you're a decent writer. You've basically written novels worth of stuff for SCP, and I doubt it pays you as well as if you just wrote a book. Why do you want to be around these people that clearly fear and merely tolerate you and talk trash about you? You really want to stick it to SCP, rip everything you wrote down, and go do your own thing? Like, seriously, why even put up with it? As for SCP staff, well, if you dislike this man so much, why are you giving him so much fucking leeway? Does he have dirt on you or something? Does he know something we don't about the inner workings of the SCP that you're afraid of getting out there? Or is this simply about protecting your precious Wiki's dubious community? There's a thing that the Kiwi farmers started calling SCP syndrome, and Cyan and Kaktus were and are victims of this brain rot. The constant thirsting for upvotes and attention and anger when it's not received. Yeah, it's why I said to remember this. What Cyan had written appears to be an almost perfect comparison for what happens to people who spend too much time in SCP, prioritizing your status on the wiki over your mental health, the odd little SCP hookup culture for what's essentially little more than hero worship, abnormally clingy behavior with weird little cliques and all sorts of backbiting going on. It really makes me wonder if that was possibly written by Cyan almost as a journaling device. So, to recap, Cyantruese was banned from SCP for allegedly breaching the anti-harassment policies. Kinch alleges that it was due to inappropriate behavior with minors, and Pills identified that minor as witness. We have no concrete proof of this, but it is possible that we missed something. I do believe that to some degree, Cyan probably was a bit of a sex pest with people on the wiki. By their own account, the youngest person they were involved with was 19. Do I believe Cyan's claim? It's a coin flip for me, honestly. You spend enough time around people like Gabriel Jade and drbright, and yeah, it becomes a strong possibility simply through osmosis. Do I believe that they were groomed into this behavior? Absolutely. Whether that's due to an event in early life or something on the wiki, or maybe a combination of the two, I absolutely believe that they were groomed into this behavior. Does that excuse them? Well, if they atone and make amends, okay, sure. If they just carry the burden around and hope that it fades away on its own, no. Make amends if you did something wrong. That's really all I can ask. As for DJKaktus, well, DJKaktus is indeed alleged to have said some gamer words on 4chan while trying to pwn the owner of a rival wiki. This really is cringe. They're accused of narcissistic and inflammatory behavior. Staff turns a blind eye to them. They are petty, emotionally manipulative, and hypocritical. They've allegedly used their namesake from the SCP Wiki to get laid, and they allegedly gaslit Cyantruese and offered alcohol to at least 2 women who were too young. Do I believe any of these claims? Well, I'll say that from reports I've received, DJKaktus appears to have mellowed out a little bit, and I think that's good. But from what I've seen, I would say that they definitely have some of these problems, and I desperately hope that they are getting the help that is required to curtail these trends. Based on what I've seen, however, yeah, I do think that they did some really crappy things in the past, and that they should absolutely atone as well. Do I think that DJKaktus is a sex pest? Well, their proximity to Gabriel Jade concerns me. And the fact that DJKaktus keeps the 049 documentation up with Gabriel's name, that rubs me the wrong way too. Do I think they were involved in Gabriel Jade's antics with Insurgency Moon? Probably not. Insurgency Moon did mention a big author and SCP-1730, and that does link to Kaktus, but unlike her other claims, there's little actual evidence to support it, and she did not specifically name him. I do think they used Cyan, and I do believe that they pulled a drbright before and used their popularity on some niche writing site in order to get laid, but yeah, that's not enough to make me believe that they aren't just suffering from some sort of other issues internally. That doesn't excuse it, but I have to give the base god the same leeway that I give to Cyan. Earlier in this video, I talked about memetics, and again, I'm pushing forward that I believe SCP, the Wiki itself, is a psychological hazard for talented writers and those seeking a place to belong. I think Kaktus is a victim of this as well. I think it would be best for Kaktus to leave the Foundation behind and write a book. He could write a book, and with his current fandom, he'd definitely be able to make at least a little bit of money doing it. You really want to stick it to those staff members who mocked you? Tear your articles down and walk away. Take your hardcore fans with you, leave them in the dust. And the only reason I believe that DJKaktus is suffering from SCP syndrome is because he announced his retirement almost a year ago, with the caveat that he just wanted to finish a few more articles. But yeah, he's still there. He participated in the 8,000 contest that ended about a month ago, and as far as I can tell, he is just gonna keep on writing there. If you're in the SCP Wiki, and it's causing you brain hurt because of the toxic, duplicitous, walled-off nature that it projects, do what Cyan did. Leave SCP behind. Walk away, don't look back, because there are so many other better places that you can go to and write. Do not trap yourself in this weird box. The more I think about it, the more I wonder if the SCP Wiki is just some sort of elaborate containment chamber. Lord knows we've talked about 6 weirdos so far from the SCP Wiki, and yeah, we're not even halfway done with this series. Oh God. Please keep in mind as we continue the series, however, do not harass or target any of these individuals. There's no amount of cyber vigilantism that you can perform that will fix these people. They are the ones who have to live with the things that they did. All we can do is pray that one day they'll make amends and find some sort of peace with their deeds. If you're hearing this, congratulations. You made it to the end of the Degenerate Parade. hopefully your vomit bucket isn't quite full yet, but I do want you to go out and spread the word to others, especially with this video. The first run didn't do as well as we would have hoped, and I'd like to dive back into it, but I'm sort of hoping to justify the sunk cost with this compilation. So if you could spread it far and wide, I think there are some interesting things here that people you know might like to know. There are so many things to talk about. I kid you not. There's a Russian copyright that's being held by somebody that's not with SCP. There's supposed to be a lawsuit filed that. We don't really know what happened with it. There was the troll wars with RPC and some ops therein. An e-girl infiltration that was pretty recent, and this e-girl wanted to bring Filipino children to the United States in order to wear costumes for her. She learned Tagalog in order to do it, got in with the old guard, really turned everything up on its head. There's also the time that they fired their head admin for being trans, so DJKaktus could put his name on basically all of her articles. That's essentially a DJKaktus Part 2, and we could do it. We're locked and loaded. Anyway, I sincerely do hope that you enjoyed the video, at least in some capacity. If you'd like to support the channel even further than just sharing the video around, I would appreciate your support on Patreon or YouTube memberships. If you enjoy the other things we do here, check out my fourth wall if you'd like. They got some merch, and you could buy it and also wear it, and I get a little bit of money from that too. But other than that, I mean, we're good, you know? I hope that you will always remember that you are loved, you are worthy, you definitely deserve it, and I shall see you in the next one. So until then, bye-bye.
Hey, 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 hey,